Tuesday's kind of a getaway day. I think he's flying back for tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll be back in the office on
Okay, okay. Oh, I asked if that was a woman from the,
Oh.
and he says, no, they're not speaking till November.
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
Just leave the one
So
alone.
maybe you're asking him about. I thought you were asking if he want to leave.
Oh, no, I didn't. But that would, I would imagine if somebody said, do you want to leave the treasures as is, I believe that everybody would instantly say,
Pull him in.
What do you mean? Don't raise it.
yeah.
How's Miss Sally?
It's probably,
But I mean, do you want to raise it?
Oh,
Right.
right.
You know, that's why when we
I-
get
I'd
into
like
it,
to
all
keep
of a
it
sudden, okay.
Oh, getting better.
Because they're
Mama's
not.
starting to feel a little bit better, doing some
I
work
kind
on
of-
herself. They don't want to know. The only thing they're saying right now
I
is,
can be persuaded otherwise.
back over here.
Well, we all know we're between here and here. This
I'll
is
look and see
figured
which
out.
chapter it is. Because we're not trying to do
Okay,
it.
some place in the city of Free.
We're just trying to get the whole package, so like 5 or 10 years.
Have you voted yet?
Well, like the
You know?
You know, this is good. This one's got everybody.
Yeah.
I can tell you. Where this political guy from Rockford spoke, and he told he said, hey, political suggestion this stuff. It all sounds good and so on and so forth. You know, he said, but I'm going to tell you guys, here's a prediction from a guy that has picked up the president since I
I was at a Chiefs conference, but I was watching.
Really?
Really?
What? How long ago?
Because you can ask
Just
Todd, his part for,
Huh.
Blackbird.
2 weeks ago, kind of excited about that.
It's just,
Of course, I couldn't. You know,
Well, I closed the winter time, just closed, let's see, I closed on the first, and the third, I'm leaving.
the only reason I'm not sure.
Vacation with my sister.
I'm sorry?
And week after that,
No how, no way.
have a little vacation with my brother.
How's Sylvia feeling?
And
So,
She still love you?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, that's.
She hasn't shot me yet, so I guess
That's a
we're
win.
doing,
travel kind
I
of.
guess we're doing okay.
Yeah, you know,
Website.
But I call, there's three people looking to understand that. They're putting a fly wall up. Fly wall.
doesn't know. So, you know,
Well, that, tonight, it looked that,
I forgot Saturday was, Monday.
I told Alex Mills wanted it done. I said, okay.
Becky, how you doing?
What do we wind up with?
Oh, you forgot about the meeting?
Okay.
stop doing that.
What I forgot about, Monday was Columbus Day, we were having a motion to get out of town. And then I couldn't get out of it.
Yeah, I got it.
In motion, whether it be slow or not.
Not, I mean, I watched it. It's some interest.
It's like if you're in school and you're taking a test, and they call you for a job.
Good point in the mix.
This is kind of a lot of reading, Meg.
Yeah.
Meg, this is kind of a lot.
Hey, you requested it, Jody.
At this time, we'll have an invocation by Miss Deborah Liner.
Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we just thank you for such a beautiful fall day. We just thank you that we live in Freeport, a beautiful community, and Father God, that you have good plans for Freeport. And so, Father God, as we begin this meeting, Lord, we ask that your wisdom, your knowledge, your guidance will guide each one of the aldermen here tonight and our mayor. We ask that you bless each one of them and protect their families and give them great favor. And Lord, we just ask that there is a spirit of unity to work together for our community, because you say that there is a blessing for those who are united. Father God, we just ask for new strategies and ways to bring businesses to our community, that families would no longer have children that would move away, but Lord, that they would be here and would strengthen our families and help our economy. We just ask that you protect our first responders, and we just also lift up this upcoming election to you, that it would be fair and honest. Lord, we just rebuke the spirit of disunity and violence in our community. Lord, may the spirit of love, you are love, Father God, fall upon Freeport. May we be known as a community of brotherly love. Be with this meeting, and we just give you all the praise and the glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
At this time, we will call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Freeport City Council to order. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Mayor Gitz,
Here.
Alderperson Clem,
Here.
McClanthan.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Busker.
Here.
Brashaw. Here. Keister.
Here.
Chesney.
Here.
Alderman Ross, would you lead us in a pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we approve the agenda, a couple of announcements. First, after approval of the minutes, we will have the introduction of our newest fireman. Second, in going through the agenda today, I wanted to point out that there'll be a couple of amendments. I believe that after review with Corporation Counsel, item 5 on our supplemental will require an amendment. There is also an amendment version to item 8, which is the part-time liquor ordinance. And on item 9, the numbers will be adjusted to reflect both matches and the overall other grants sought. I just wanted to give the council notice. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
It's moved by Alderman Keister. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Busker. All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. Next, we have approval of the minutes from the October 3rd meeting. Is there a motion for their approval?
So moved.
It's moved by Alderperson Brashaw and seconded by Alderperson Miller. Thank you. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. In a remarkable turn of events, there are no public comments on agenda items. We'll now, at this time, recognize the fire chief, who's going to introduce our newest fireman and give you some of his background. Chief? And first of all, welcome.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. As you know, we've had some retirements. We've are in the middle of the process of replacing some of those folks that have retired and moved on. But we also had a resignation. A younger guy went on to another community, so that presents an opportunity for another new guy. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you our newest firefighter, Matthew Young. Matt comes to us from the Antioch Fire Department. He resides in Lake Villa. So he's a Lake County guy, and he's getting a taste of Stevenson County, and he's enjoying it. Highlight for Matthew, he's engaged to be married to his fiancee in April of 2017. He began his career with the Freeport Fire Department on October 3rd. Some of his educational accomplishments and certifications are he's an EMT basic through state of Illinois, through the Illinois State Fire Chiefs Fire Marshal's certifications. He's firefighter basic, hazardous materials operations, technical rescue awareness, we call FSVO, Fire Service Vehicle Operator, big title for that, and a Fire Apparatus Engineer. He also has a certification in wildland fire as a technician. So some of his work history was he was in the Armed Forces in the Army branch from 2007 until 2009. He was deployed to Afghanistan from 2007 to 2008. So again, service to our country, which we appreciate. After he returned from his stint in the military, he enrolled into obtaining his EMT basic license and also attended the fire academy on his own. In 2011, he became a member of the Antioch Fire Department, and now we're benefiting from his knowledge and experience. So once again, I'd like to introduce Matt Young.
Thank you. I'll keep this short. I just like to thank everyone for the opportunity here, and I'm looking forward to a long, successful career at the Freeport Fire Department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'll be there. I'll see you there. Okay.
We now come to the consent agenda. First, is there any item that a member of the council would like to remove from the consent agenda for further consideration and discussion? Seeing no such request, the consent agenda will stand as presented. Is there a motion for its adoption?
So moved.
It's moved by Alderperson Bradshaw. Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Alderman Ross seconds. The consent agenda has upon it the City Treasurer's monthly investment report for September 2016, the City Treasurer's cash and fund balances report for September 2016, the motor fuel tax registers for September in the amount of $443,462.44, approval of the water and sewer bills payable in the amount of $93,738.55, approval of the payroll for the pay period ending October 1st, 2016, in the total amount of $415,093.68, with fringe benefit payments in the amount of $34,456.11, for a total of $449,549.79. And item E is approval of the finance bills payable in the total amount of $949,823.95. Much of that, by the way, is the water project. These are the total number of items that are included in the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, there having been a motion and a second, please take the roll.
Ross?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Brashaw?
Aye.
Keister?
Aye.
Chesney?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
McClanathan?
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Okay. We'll leave the council. I'd like to bypass item 5. I'd like special counsel. Well, he just joined us. Good. We'll handle it now. We come first to ordinances, first reading. Item 5, first reading of ordinance 2016-51. Madam Clerk, could you please read this ordinance?
This is a first reading of ordinance 2016-51, an ordinance to amend and adjust the appropriation ordinance fiscal year 2016-2017 for the city of Freeport, Illinois.
Okay. It's come to the chair's attention that this supplemental appropriation ordinance is undergoing some numbers changes from its earlier draft on Friday to today. Either Attorney Phillips or Director of Finance, could you kind of bring the council up to date and then move on to what it is that we're seeking to do in this mandatory ordinance?
Thank you, Mayor. Last weekend, I tried to do some house cleaning on the appropriation, but today, after consulted with Attorney Phillips, and he advised me that I need to make some changes in the language. Right now, I'm passing out the revised version and kind of walk everybody through it. So what I'm trying to do with this amendment, it's just like in the appropriation, there was a mistake that we have a transportation grant should have been Downstate Operation Assistant Program. In the Downstate Operation Assistant Program, the name should be Transportation Grant. So I would like to make that changes. And B, as of May of 2016, the grant coordinator no longer reports to community development, so I'm asking authorization to move the salary of the grant coordinator from the community development to the finance department. A total amount of $51,920.51. And C is the street department. The appropriation, there was a mistake in the spending plans is $190. The contingency is $190, is $5,000. And the appropriation should have said $195, but however, it said $190. It was a cell mistake and a mistake I should have caught. I didn't catch it, so I'm asking permission to make the update into the appropriation. And the last one will be item D with the street light. Director Dole have advised me that he has, there was a storm. There was a damage due to a storm, and in the line of that item, they had $6,000, but the bill came from $6,824.50. He is short $824.50. He's asking permission to move $824.50 from line item 48-101-48-543 to 01-44-544.
Questions from the council?
Mayor,
Yes, Alderman Keister.
just going to make a motion to move it forward in the amended version.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderperson Bradshaw. We will take all questions and answers before we move this on. Who had further comments? Alderman
Mayor,
Chelsea?
is this time sensitive in nature?
No.
Okay.
Alderman McClanathan, did you have any questions?
No, Mayor.
All right.
Mayor.
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. Finance Director, in the past, I always understood that the grant coordinator kind of reported to community development. Has there been a change in the way they report, or do they just report directly to the mayor, or do they report to you now?
Well,
They
I think-
report to finance. And the reason for the change goes back to the audit recommendation from last year.
Yes.
Mayor, may I ask Mr. Bernadelle?
Sure.
Thank you. Did you want to elaborate on that, Mr. Bernadelle?
The mayor have asked me that's what he wanted to do, to move the community development, the grant coordinator from the community development department because of the findings in the last audit 2015. And so to comply with the audit of 2015, he decided to move the grant coordinator from the community development to the finance department.
Thank you.
If I might add to that, the audit recommendation was in part based upon the fact that there was believed to be a need for an even closer relationship than just simply trading information back and forth between the grant coordinator and finance. They wanted a formalization of that relationship. Upon reflection in the audit report, it also made sense to us to locate this position in finance because the grant coordinator has always had responsibilities that went well beyond community development. They spent a lot of time, in fact, maybe a majority of their time on community development issues. But they also have grants for the fire department, the police department, and other departments. So by making this position report to finance, it formalizes the audit recommendation, but it also makes it clear that this position cuts across all departments, not just one.
Mayor.
Yes, Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. Upon further review, I just have a brief question to either yourself or Director Bernadelle. On the prior version, not the amended version, there were some additional issues on ENF. Is it safe to assume that with them not being the amended version that those issues are resolved? That's not something we have to take care of down the road?
Attorney Phillips?
Actually, those were deleted, as Mr. Bernadelle will tell you, because they were not in the appropriation ordinance. They were in the attached working papers that he was working off of. And when I saw that they weren't actually in the appropriation ordinance, I said, you can take those out and you can send an email if the persons want to know exactly what's going on in it. But that's why we tried to limit ourselves only to the changes of the text of the appropriation ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments? If not, ordinance 2016-51 as amended will be held until the next regular scheduled council meeting for further debate and passage. We now move on to item 6, which is first reading of ordinance 2016-52. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance into the record?
This is an ordinance amending paragraph D of section 290.02 compensation plan of chapter 290 compensation and benefits of the codified ordinances of the city of Freeport, Illinois.
This ordinance, as the council will note, is changing, actually it's lifting the library out of the regular compensation schedule to comport with what we actually do. Attorney Phillips, you drafted the language for the librarian. She would be with us tonight, but is ill.
Yes, this is a section that's entitled Freeport Public Library 2010 salary schedule. Obviously, they don't use the 2010. And there's another section of 290 that says that library employees are not covered by this chapter because they have their own salary schedule outside of 290. And this is a mere cleanup. It's been waiting for 5 years to actually just take it out because it doesn't apply. One, it doesn't apply to these employees, and plus it's 6 years out of date for the salary schedule.
Are there any questions from the council?
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney.
thank you. What are best practices with other municipalities as far as oversight? You know, part of me would say that they would operate as a separate entity with oversight being that we approve the budget. The second piece would be that it's nice to know what the salaries are as they compare to people in other facets of government. So while I recognize we're cleaning this up, what are other municipalities doing? Have we taken a look at that?
Attorney Phillips.
I've not been asked to do that, but the vast majority of our library employees are under the AFSCME contract. So there's only a few that are exempt from the collective bargaining unit. So their salary schedules, the ones who are in the unit, would be determined by that contract. Other than that, I have never been asked to research into that other issue.
I can share with you that in most cases, the library salary schedule and operations are handled separately and supervised by the library board. The part that comes to the city council is approval of the overall budget and approval of their levy. Those are done by statute. Other than that, it sort of is a autonomous body. But if you would like further research, we can certainly do that. Any other questions from the council? If not, is there a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Keister,
motion to move it forward.
is there a second?
Second.
It's moved by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Quinn. This ordinance will be held until the next regular meeting of the Freeport City Council. We now come to item 7, which is first reading of ordinance 2016-53. Madam Clerk, could you please read this ordinance?
This is an ordinance establishing the compensation of the city clerk, the city council, and the city council by amending various sections of the codified ordinances of the city of Freeport, Illinois. This ordinance was recommended to the city council by the committee of the whole on October 11th.
Would the chair of that meeting, the last meeting, I think it was Alderman Chesney, like to discuss this ordinance since it came out of committee of the whole?
I'm sorry, Mayor, can you say it?
As the chair of the committee of the whole on that occasion, which recommended this ordinance, would you like to present this ordinance? Or
Oh,
do you
sure.
want
Thank
the
you, Mayor.
attorney?
Just a quick recap. What it was decided on as a committee was a 0% in the first year, and it was 0.5 for year 2, 3, and 4. There was also discussion as to what we would do since we have delayed the seat being taken by the next city clerk in light of the referendum. So we wanted to make sure that that was compensated. So the present city clerk, as well as the treasurer and mayor, would all be compensated for the time that they worked for the city. So there was two pieces. One, I think there was unanimous support that we would pay the elected officials for the time that they worked. The second piece which did have some more discussion, was what the increases should be. And what was decided at the committee, which of course is not a final action, was 0% and 0.55 from 2 through 4. So that's where we're at today, and it would be open for discussion.
Mayor?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. I've been arguing my case independently, and I think the base salary for a new city clerk that would be elected in should start actually at a slightly lower base. I am projecting or actually offering my opinion on it. I think a 95% salary base from the current salary would be substantial for somebody coming in without the experience and expertise that Ms. Zaravel gives us now, that she has had 8 years of earning. I think that the base right now is at $57,499, and I would like to say I think the starting salary should start at $54,624. And go up 1% per year after the first year, so 0% the first year. And then year 2 would be $55,170, year 3 would be $55,722, and fourth year would be $56,279. That person,
Sally,
they've
can
been
you
there.
go over those numbers one more time?
Oh, I'm so sorry, excuse me. 95% salary base would be $54,624. 1% increase the second year would be $55,170. Third year, $55,722. Fourth year, $56,279. At the fourth year, at $56,279, it would be close to what the base salary is now. So that person would then be closer to what the current city clerk status is. And people need to keep in mind also that they will also receive after their training, their $2,500, I can't remember what the training was called. Anyone remember what that is?
I remember.
Mr. I'm sorry.
It's a certified municipal clerk. It's called CMC.
CMC. May I continue, Mayor? I'm sorry. I'm kind of rattling on here.
Yes.
Thank you.
When you do conclude, we would appreciate it if you would work to get a copy of your language to the clerk.
Yes, sir. When they complete their certified training, the CMC, as I'm now told, is $2,500. So, I mean, in reality, their first year base salary at $54,624 would also have that $2,500 on top of it. And I think that's a very substantial salary for a city clerk position, whether it's male or female or whoever gets that job, who's ever elected to that position, for somebody that may or may not have any of the skill sets that we are looking for, and we'll probably have to pay to have them trained in. Anyhow, that's my 2 bits on that, and I hope I haven't bored you all.
Mayor?
There are several people who wish to comment. Alderperson Miller.
Yeah, Alderperson Bradshaw, your comments, did you tell us what those percentages are, or where did you come up with those numbers from?
Mayor?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. The base salary right now for city clerk is $57,499.
That's not what it says in the ordinance here.
What you're probably looking at, if I may not correct you, but it says $57,499. That was this current from May 1st, 2016 through April 30th, 2017. And what they're doing is they're proposing the $55,288 is what I think you're looking at, because it's it's based on a 50-week schedule instead of a 52-week yearly schedule, because we have a carryover of 2 weeks in the next year because of the election, the way we've set it up. So when I'm talking about base salary at 95% of $54,624, you take that divided by 52 weeks times 50 weeks would be $52,523. But you remember they're only working a 50-hour week, 50-week year. Excuse me, I correct myself. So the base salary is $54,624. And then if the 1% increase is what I'm projecting, would be bring it up to $55,170 instead of the half percentage. When they, in the committee of the whole meeting, when they're talking the half percentage increase, it is an increase, but it's not a lot. But they were talking about base salary to begin with. But there again, I'm thinking a new employee, I don't think it's really fair I'm not saying Meg Zaravel, but she has worked in her position for 8 years to earn her base salary. And I think this person needs to work up to to that level. And even though it might only take them 5 years to achieve that, at least they have some projection to go. And they could quit or something too.
So your projection is 5% less to start, and then 1% increase each year?
After the first year.
After the first year, 1%?
It'd be 0, 1, 1, 1.
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
I have several things here real quick. Alderperson Bradshaw, when you were talking about the 54,624 and then going on through the year, now, is that taking into consideration the extra money that was taken off to pay for Mr. Rubbles' pay for those 2 weeks? And is it compounded? I mean, the salary you're saying here, the 54,000, is without the money that's on there to cover Mr. Rubbles' pay for the 2 weeks. Is that correct?
Mayor?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
As far as I'm understanding the legalities, we have to pay Ms. Zaravo the salary she's currently earning for those 2 weeks. So the projected salary for the newbie or the new person coming in at the 54,624, we would subtract 2 weeks because they are only working 50 weeks. So their salary would be down to 52,523 plus 2 weeks of the previous salary that would go to Ms. Zaravo to pay her for compensation of time. At no time would those times be doubling over.
Follow up, Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Yes. Obviously, I was not able to attend Tuesday night's meeting for personal reasons, but I did watch it with quite a bit of interest. I agree with a lot of comments made, and there's a lot of comments I did not agree with. I personally do not agree with cutting the salary in any way, shape, or form. This is a very important position in the city that requires a lot of work and a lot of, let's face it, it's the backbone of what goes on down here. And my concern is we start cutting the salary, we start maybe cutting out the people that can do the job. I'm concerned about that. Yes, they're going to be starting fresh, but the people I've seen over the years that have come on here have been professional, and they've taken over very, very quickly in learning. So I would not be in favor of that. And the 1, 1, and 1, or 0, 1, 1, and 1, I don't know if I'd be happy with that either, because I think the job deserves a little bit better compensation than that. I think the least I would be happy with is 0, 1, 1.5, and 1.5. But what concerns me the most is, like I said, I've been involved with the city for damn near 30 years now, or excuse me, putting near 30 years now. And I've seen a lot of different things go on. And over the past 15 years, due to the recession and everything else, there has been a very large number of cuts in the services of the city, in what personnel get, and that kind of stuff. We have one person with the city clerk doing the job of 2 to 3 people. We have a treasurer doing the job of 2 to 3 people. And now we talk about the new person coming in, we're going to cut them money. I don't agree with that. What I have seen, and forgive me for saying this, but I've got to say it, the non-bargaining unit personnel that work for this city are being treated entirely differently than the bargaining unit personnel. There are non-bargaining unit personnel that should have got a raise already this year. It was in the budget, it's there, but they're not getting it. And now we turn around and another non-bargaining unit personnel, that's an elected official, we're going to take something away from them again. I can't agree with it.
Mayor.
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. So just for clarity, Alderperson Bradshaw, your proposal for city clerk is actually even slightly more aggressive than the proposal in ordinance form. I show that your high-end salary through year 4 would be $56,279. The proposal is $58,360. Am I seeing that correctly?
Mayor?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. Your original proposal would have brought the salary after 4 years up to $58,366. The one I'm proposing after the 4th year would bring it up to $56,279. It is more aggressive by about $2,000.
Further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
as I just said to Alderman McClanathan, I said, you thought this one was gonna be easy, didn't you? And I just say that kidding. I'm glad to hear the conversation on both sides. Sally, I think the proposal you brought forward does take a look at the thing in a little different light. The one thing we have to remember about this position that's a little different than other positions is we have no way in the world of picking this person. We're going to get whoever runs in that position and gets the most votes. So it isn't as though we're going out here and we're going to select from 25 people. So that puts us in a little different category. I do like, Alderman McClanathan and I talked a little back and forth. As he is a public servant working for the county, I said to him, the biggest thing I've seen is somewhat what Alderman Keister brought up is, are people really treated fair, and is 0.5% fair, or is 1% fair, or is 1.5% fair? I think we're at a stage we all kind of agree on about where we're at. It's just a matter of tweaking some stuff. So I don't think we're as far off as we are. But when I talked to Alderman McClanathan, one of the things I said is, before we actually vote on this, and I was going to ask the question of how time sensitive it is, whether it has to be this week, whether it has to be a special meeting, whether it can be the next meeting, is I think we all need to see it on paper. Because when we start passing numbers back and forth, they all sound good, okay, but you may look at it later on and say, geez, I never thought that was going to be that. You know, so that's all I ask is we maybe do a little more conversation on this and figure out exactly where we're at. I do agree with the parts that are brought in as far as the 50 weeks, because, you know, Meg is going to do the 2 weeks under the other contract. So I think the things are, question number one is, do you start at where you were, do you drop backwards, or do you make a raise? You know, do I think we ought to make a raise to it right off the bat? The answer to that is, I don't think we should do that. Okay, but I'm not opposed to what Alderman Bradshaw brought up and would be very open to some more conversation on it.
Before we go further, two things. One, the council has the option. You're going to be good as long as you're approving this at the first meeting in November or the May dates. I've asked Attorney Phillips to verify that. So no one is expecting you to ram this thing through tonight. Number two, you have two choices. You can approve an amendment that is brought to you on the floor, or you can say, we're going to put this on the floor in its present form. We're going to draft this amendment, and we're going to debate it at the next council meeting before we have final passage. So you can handle this a variety of ways, is my point. So if the will of the council is to approve the amendment now, then you can make a motion on the amendment to add it. We need to have copies made for the clerk so we can get it correct. And you can add the amendment to the ordinance, or you can also just make an motion on the ordinance itself, and that doesn't mean that you can't consider the amendment at the next meeting. You can do it either way.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Alderman Clem, I appreciate the feedback. You know, we have spent an awful lot of time discussing the salaries of elected officials. We have spent much less time discussing economic development and more pressing issues that I think are before the city of Freeport. We've asked for analysis, we've been given reports, we've been given comparables. I don't know that there's really a question that we haven't had the opportunity to ask. And my view would be is we just make a decision and move on. I think that our goal is to put this through correctly in the right format, with the right progression, being a first and a second, and not a last-minute amendment with all the wrangling. And, you know, my preference would be is wherever the votes fall, they may, but, you know, let's find out where we're going and move forward and be done with it, because, you know, we have spent an awful lot of time on where people volunteer. the salaries of politicians than we have on growing the city of Freeport. And in my view, I think we should refocus our time on that and not spend another couple of hours on what we're going to pay elected officials. I think the information's before us, and if people want to go up, then there could be an amendment to go up. If people want to go as proposed in the ordinance, they can make a motion to move it forward. If people want to adopt Alderperson Bradshaw's suggestion, she has the numbers right there, and we could certainly, get any clarification if we need to in second reading, if there's any last-minute discussions, but we would certainly be able to see it in that form. So those are just my comments. Not that these aren't important decisions, but I would just argue we have much more important decisions in setting the salaries, because we have been going at this for about 2 months. So I would imagine it's time to probably make a decision.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Miller, then Alderman Clem.
Alderperson Bradshaw, I really appreciate the fact that you are attempting to save the city money and still be, I would call, more than fair to someone new coming in. Because honestly, I don't think that someone that would be running for that seat is going to turn away from the job because of $2,000. I wouldn't. If I wanted to serve in that capacity, it wouldn't matter if it was 58 or 56 to me. So I would make a motion to approve Alderperson's suggestions with her numbers and amend it in.
Second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the amendment. Alderperson Bradshaw, we really need a copy of your amendment for the clerk.
Yes, sir.
No.
Can I finish discussion here?
Yes, I just want to make sure we have that so that it's read into the record correctly. Alderman Clem.
Both those statements sounded real good unless you were an employee of the city of Freeport or wanted to become one. Because you know what you told them in between the lines there. I have to tell you, last Friday, I took a tour up through City Hall. And as I did that tour, I was stopped by 2 people that said to me, "Alderman Clem, can I have some time with you?" And I said, "Sure." And we sat down and talked about how much had been cut, how much has not been done, and the way city employees are treated, along with the ethics of some of the things that have happened. So I really think, you guys can ram this through if you want, but to say that it's arguing about just an elected official's salary, what if you were the person that was going to run for that? Would you run for that if you were sitting there saying, geez, if they don't care if I make X, why would I really want to go there and bust my hump? Sure, it's got benefits with it. Sure, it's got a lot of other things with it. But it's $50-some thousand. It's not 106. Okay, I just think we ought to take a look at the numbers more. If we're going to vote it through and vote it up or down, that's fine. Okay, we can also. This is in its first reading this week, so without a doubt, we do get to amend it next week or take another crack at it next week or whatever. But I would have been for favor of making a motion to move it forward and then come up with the figures and possibly amend it or take a look at it in a different way. But if we're going to do this hell-bent for election, go ahead and do her.
Mr.
Mayor.
Chair.
I'm sorry. Was there anyone who hasn't spoken yet who wishes to be heard for a first time? Okay. Alderman Chesney and then Alderman Keister.
Thank you, sir. I think, Alderman Clem, we have to break this down a little bit differently for elected officials than we do employees. Elected officials are granted job security for 4 years, so they already know what they're going to make. Now take a look at, what the average person in our constituency that we represent. The average person doesn't have any job security. This particular position has 4 years of job security. This person also knows what they're going to make in year 2, 3, and 4. I don't think that this is the same as an employee. This is public service, and these are political positions. These are not employees with the city of Freeport. There is a difference, I think. Secondly, this person cannot get fired. So we forget about this. This person is there for the entire portion of their term, should he or she choose to be. Unlike many of the higher paid jobs in the city of Freeport, those are non-bargaining positions that are really at the discretion of the mayor. So I do look at these a little bit differently. But I believe that political positions are service positions first, salaried positions second. And we may just fundamentally disagree on those two issues. But I don't think that it's fair to couple an elected position the same as we do our, police chief, fire chief, and our department head. So I do believe there's a distinction between the two, and I would point that out. The second piece is I wouldn't say that this is being rammed through, because I know that we've discussed this at the committee of the whole, and I know before this we've also seen a number of data points that haven't really pointed, outside of just a feeling, what the proposal that Alderperson Bradshaw is suggesting will have any impact on the type of person that will come forward and serve the city of Freeport. What we haven't come up with is any data points in the very in-depth analysis that was provided to us that says we're too low. What we simply said is, well, we don't like to cut, or we've cut too much, or we have to maintain with non-bargaining. But we haven't argued any data points within that, be it Belvedere or otherwise, that have shown we're too low for the position. All we've simply said is that we need to go higher because that's just what you do in city government. So I think the more appropriate discussion is if somebody doesn't believe it's high enough, show me a data point that has been provided to us from Meg Zaravel's office that suggest they're too low. I think the reason that we're not talking about it is because we know we're probably right in the sweet spot for what we should pay a city clerk. And also, mind you, that this position, we doubled the capacity this year, and we gave this office a full-time deputy clerk, which was not available when that person took its office. Okay, so we've actually expanded not only the budget of this particular office, but we've reduced the role, or at least the hours necessary for that person to serve, which we haven't, done a lot of discussion about.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
Yeah, several things. First of all, Alderman Clem, I agree with you 100%. I have had a number of employees express the same thing to me and talk to me about it. And the one thing we're not talking about, and it has been mentioned to me by several employees, bargaining and non-bargaining, we start cutting salaries here, next time they're up for a new position or a contract renewal, we're going to start cutting theirs too? They see this, they will see this as setting precedents. So we do it for one, or we're going to start doing it to them. And as far as elected officials, taking what they get and stuff, yeah, there is a certain amount of sacrifice and a certain amount of civic pride with elected officials, especially at our level. I mean, let's face it, ain't none of us sitting on this council for the money, because there ain't much. But people like Ms. Zaravel and a few other employees that are elected officials and employees here, they live on that money. That is how they make their living. Right, wrong, or indifferent. A lot of elected officials, that's how they make their living. And now we're saying, well, okay, fine, we're going to cut it for you. I don't agree with that. I cannot agree with that, and I think we're setting bad precedents, and I agree with Alderman Clem. I'd like to see it brought through in the original form. And if we have to have another meeting, a special meeting to discuss this and make it happen, then so be it. But I cannot in any way clear conscience agree with cutting the salary from what it is on here.
Further discussion.
Mayor.
Alderman McClanathan.
Procedural question. With the amendments on the floor here, we're at first reading here. If the amendment were to fail, can it be renewed in its form at the second reading? Upon further analysis, et cetera.
Attorney Phillips, I believe it can. Do you disagree?
I'm not aware of anything in our city code that would address that issue. It would be under our Robert's Rules of Order, and I'd have to defer to take a chance to look at that rather than just guess off the top of my head. So I don't know anything that says you can't, but I don't have a firm opinion on it, because that would something that would take some research.
Okay.
My ruling on it is simply that I don't see anything in our rules or in Robert's rules that would prohibit it being brought back as a floor amendment.
And Mayor.
Alderman McClanathan.
And with your ruling as chair, it would such a ruling would have to be appealed and et cetera. Otherwise, your ruling would stand. Correct.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion. A discussion is in order right now only on the amendment. And respectfully, in the interest of time, If there's new points to be made, please bring them forward. But let's discuss the amendment. Let's bring the new issues forward. And if we've concluded discussion, let's vote on the amendment, and then we can move to the ordinance. Further discussion, Alderman Clem?
Yes, could we have a rereading of the amendment, please?
Madam Clerk, I believe you have a copy now, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay, would you please read the amendment?
The amendment would be to change the year one salary to 54,624, but provide it for a 50-week period, which would be 52,523. In the second year, a 1% increase, the amount would be 55,170. The third year, with a 1% increase, would be 55,722. And for the fourth year, with a 1% increase, the amount would be 56,279. The $2,500 certification would still stand as it is.
Mayor.
Further discussion. Alderman Clem?
No, I just have one. What is, since we've got things lined out and they're rather much, what is the actual base salary of the city clerk of the city of Freeport at the moment?
55,000, I'm sorry, $57,499.
Correct.
Mayor.
Thank you.
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. Assuming that whoever wins the election for the position does not have that prior certification, after year 3, then would they automatically also, in addition to the 1%, receive the $2,500 increase, or is that subject to further votes, et cetera?
Is that a question directed to the clerk?
To whoever knows.
Madam Clerk?
The certification process is 3 years of schooling, but then in addition to that, in order to get a certification, you have to earn enough points. I used my college education and continuing education classes in order to receive enough points. So just going to class for 3 years if to obtain your certification isn't enough. You have to also have various points in addition to that. So.
Follow-up, Mayor.
Alderman McClanathan.
So assuming the person who takes the position then next follows through with what's necessary there, at that point, in addition to the 1% raise in between year 3 and 4, they'd be eligible then for the $2,500 increase at that point?
Yes, that amount is added on, yes.
Further discussion on the amendment. Is everyone clear on the contents of the amendment? Is there anyone who has any questions? Seeing no further questions and no further comments, there having been a motion and a second on the amendment, Madam Clerk, call the roll. The roll is on the adoption of the amendment to the ordinance that has been recommended to the council by the Committee of the Whole.
Ross?
Just a minute. Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Brashaw?
Aye.
Keister?
No.
Chesney?
Aye.
Clem?
No.
McClanathan?
No.
Passes 5-3.
Madam Clerk, was there a motion made at the outset to adopt the ordinance? My recollection is not, but I want to be sure.
I say it was a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole, but I do not have a motion for approval.
Okay, we do not have a motion to adopt the ordinance. Before the amendment was offered, we have adopted the amendments. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance with the amendment?
So moved.
It's moved by Alderman Chesney. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderperson Miller. Ordinance 2016-53 will be held over pursuant to council rule until the next regular meeting of the Freeport City Council, or a special meeting if one was called. We now move to ordinance 2016-54. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance?
This is an ordinance amending section 806.09L, persons ineligible for licenses of chapter 806 alcoholic liquor sales of the codified ordinances of the city of Freeport, Illinois. This ordinance was recommended from the Liquor Commission in their meeting held on October 13, 2016.
Attorney Phillips, you drafted this taking into account the state liquor code. Before you discuss the technicalities, let me refresh the council's how this ordinance came to be. At not the October meeting, but the September meeting of the Liquor Commission, two of the members of the council asked for the Liquor Commission's opinion on making some basic changes in the ordinance. One of the questions was guest bartenders, because technically under our existing ordinance, you couldn't guest bartend. I know that many of us have done it, and there was a question that was raised, is that legal? The answer is yes, under state law, but we wanted to codify it. The second question that was presented is whether a member of the council could actually be a part-time bartender. The answer under the new state law is yes, they could, previously not. So the Liquor Commission took up this issue with the caveats that you see, that a person who's part-time employed in the liquor industry cannot participate in discussion of those issues on the council floor. This represents, with a definition that was also adopted on part-time employment, the will and recommendation of the Liquor Commission. Attorney Phillips, would you walk us through the technicalities of this?
The question that was presented originally was whether a alderperson in the city of Freeport could serve as a part-time paid bartender for the city of Freeport, as well as a volunteer at a charity event. We've talked about the charity event. So what I did is, under the city's home rule authority, I passed, using the wording of the state statute with the limitations the state statute puts on. It used to be a blanket, no, you can't. It'd have to be something outside of the jurisdiction of the city of Freeport, like if somewhere out in the county or in another county. Since then, they changed the statute in 2014 to allow a limited situation when a city official, including a police officer, the mayor, or all the people, to have interest as an employee of a licensee under the jurisdiction of the same city. So, as of that regard, so this was drafted. The restrictions on A and B are taken verbatim out of the state statute. The Liquor Commission wanted a further change. We had said to allow an alderperson to be a part-time paid employee or paid bartender. The Liquor Commission said, well, what do you mean by that? So, and I said, well, we talked about what a part-time really meant, and that's when the compromise was 30 hours a week, no more than 30 hours a week, and that was based upon the same requirement under the Obamacare, the federal health care statute, that defines full-time employees as those employed as 30 hours a week or more. Not 40 like we always thought it would be. In that case, it was 30. So the Liquor Commission directed me to redraft the ordinance with their recommendation that it be 40, no more than 30 hours a week, that an alderperson could be employed by a licensed liquor establishment in this city as a bartender. And that's where that information comes from.
Mayor.
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Attorney Phillips, a few things on the proposed ordinance, and I appreciate you working with us on this. I know that it's been discussed for about a month and a half now. Two pieces. The first is, would a bartender also, would a bartender also extend to a waiter or waitress?
No, because as I was originally asked, the position as I was asked about was part-time bartender. And that's what I wrote the ordinance, and so it would be, and so it's limited as a part-time bartender.
If I may, Mayor?
Alderman Chesney?
Thank you, sir. And I'll take the, I'll take that modification as my fault. I
Nobody's
would,
fault. It's
um,
the reason why.
I would see two amendments that I think the city council should consider. One is if we could extend that to waiters and waitresses, and the other is to remove the parameters of part-time and just, somebody can be a bartender or waiter or waitress in the city of Freeport and also be an alderperson. The original scope of the conversation I had with Attorney Phillips is reflective in this ordinance, and you did take it exactly as I said it, and we haven't had follow-up conversations. So those would be the two amendments that I would make a motion to amend. One would be to eliminate the language as it relates to the part-time, and also to include the waiter and waitress.
Yes, you would need to have.
The question I posed to us, do we need the waiter and waitress language added?
Right, because this, as of right now, the original state statute and our ordinance as it currently written says it can't be added at all. So if you're gonna make exceptions, you gotta clearly identify what exceptions you're making. But the original proposal was bartenders, so if you wanna accept waiters and waitresses, that should be in the ordinance too. Otherwise, it would go back to the other language, which would be a bar to them acting as a waiter or waitress.
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan?
Thank you. Attorney Phillips, on those two issues there, the waiter and the waitress, and then also just eliminating the part-time limitations, how does that mirror or not the state statute? What does the state statute currently allow?
My computer just crashed as we
Nice.
started talking about that. And
Okay.
I've been answering questions and trying to bring it back up
Sure.
to that section. So, and my file is unfortunately sitting on the office in the administrative area. So I can't answer that question right off the top of my head. If you give me a couple minutes, I might be able to find it. I don't want to guess from what my memory says. I want to give you a
Sure.
complete quotation, and that's what I'm in the process of doing. So I would ask if you could move on while I'm looking for this. I might be able to answer it for you quickly. If not, I'll just run back to the office and get the file.
Questions or comments from the council? Alderman Clem?
Mr. Mayor, this is just a question, okay? Would it or should it go back to the Liquor Commission? And that's just a,
That's not a legal decision. That's a policy decision. It's if the city council thinks they want the liquor commission's input on it, then they should send it back, and we could bring it back at the first meeting in November. But I'm not aware of any legal requirement to take it back to them for an amendment.
thank you.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney?
Alderman Clem, do you have concerns with removing the part-time language and expanding that to include waiters and waitresses? And the reason I bring that up is, common practice, the city council has been that we have amended many ordinances on its face as it's come out of various committees. The idea is that we get the framework and the structured agreed to. But is there anything that perhaps I'm not seeing outside of Alderman McClanathan's legal concerns that we're not coloring outside the lines?
No, my only question on it was just what was discussed there, and if there was anything we missed in the whole thing, because I didn't happen to be there. That was the only reason. No. Do I have any problem with it overall? No, because, to me, a bartender, a waitress, a waiter, we have a lot of them in the city of Freeport that do, they're basically service-type positions, so I guess I'd answer this question. If a firefighter can serve on the council, should a bartender be able to? It has nothing to do with anything, but I'm just saying, we aren't limited. You know, I don't think, to me, I thought when we first heard it, and we all know, we first heard it on the retreat. You know, everybody just kind of looked at each other and said, you gotta be kidding me, because I know there's been times that I've volunteered in downtown Freeport at, as far back as Tuddy Baker days and the Music on Chicago as a bartender. You know, so we're asked to do it many different times. That's why, as we talked about this and it came forward, do I really have it, anything that it ought to be changed? No is the answer to that. You know, we could, to me, that would be fine.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney, you've offered an amendment. Do you want to put that into place of a motion?
Yes, I would make a motion to remove the language of part-time and also to include waiter or waitress as an acceptable position under this ordinance.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's moved by Alderman Chesney and seconded by Alderperson Brashaw to remove the language on part-time and to add waiters and waitress to the ordinance. Is there further discussion on that amendment?
Mayor,
Alderman McClanathan.
I'd just like to get the okay from Attorney Phillips before I would feel comfortable voting on that.
Okay. While we're waiting for his language from the statute, is there any other issues in regard to the ordinance that we can deal with? Madam Clerk?
Think I would just like to speak to a few things, because our ordinances actually allows for people to be the waiters and waitresses and be 18 years old. So the state statute probably is looking at that the bartenders are selling the liquor even though a waitress brings it to someone's table. That is usually the way the statutes differentiate between the two. So pouring is definitely the sale, and bringing it to someone's table is not necessarily looked at in the statute that way. So that might be something for you to consider too.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. While Attorney Phillips is looking that up, I think we want to accomplish a few things in the ordinance. One is we want each alderperson the opportunity to volunteer, and I think up until this ordinance, that was not possible. The second is we want to open the opportunity for alderpersons to serve, right? So we want to expand more people that can run for these positions, and then excluding waiters and waitresses and bartenders is a significant portion of the city of Freeport. And I think the third is we want an alderperson to be able to also earn some income or a lot of income should he or she choose to fall under one of these identified roles. So I think as long as we can accomplish all these three items, I can't imagine there would be much pushback as long as it coincides with state statute, is my view.
I apologize, I wasn't following your discussion. Attorney Phillips and I disagree on the need for the waiter and waitress to be included in this, but he's the attorney.
Mr. Mayor?
There's an amendment on the floor, and the question, Attorney Phillips, while you're gone, is that there was a desire of the council to hear the exact language that's in the statute in this section.
I'm reading from section 6-2 of the Illinois Liquor Code. And specifically is subparagraph A14. It says, any law enforcement public official, including members of local liquor control commissions, any mayor, alderman, or member of a city council or commission, any president of the village board of trustees, any member of the village board of trustees, or any president or member of a county board. These are the people to whom liquor licenses should not be issued to. And no such official shall have a direct interest in the manufacture, sale, or distribution of alcoholic liquor, except, and here's where the wording starts coming out, a license may be granted to such official in relation to premises that are not located within the territory subject to the jurisdiction of that official, if the issuance of such license is approved by the State Liquor Commission, and except that a license may be granted in a city or village with a population of 55,000 or less to any alderman, member of a city council, or member of a village board of trustees in relation to premises that are located within the territory subject to that jurisdiction of that official. If one, the sale of alcoholic liquor pursuant to the license is incidental to the selling of food. 2, the issuance of the license is approved by the state commission. And 3, the issuance of the license is in accordance with applicable local ordinances in effect where the premises are located. And 4, the official granted a license does not vote on alcoholic liquor issues pending before the board or council to which the license holder is elected. And so then it goes on to say, notwithstanding any provision to this paragraph 14 to the contrary, any alderman or member of a city council or commission, member of the village board of trustees, other than the president of the village board of trustees, or a member of the county board other than the president of the county board, may have a direct interest in the manufacture, sale, or distribution of alcoholic liquor as long as he or she is not a law enforcement nor enforcing public official, a mayor, a village board president, or a president of a county board. To prevent any conflict of interest, the elected official with a direct interest in the manufacture, sale, or distribution of alcoholic liquor shall not participate in any meetings, hearings, or decisions on matters impacting the manufacture, sale, or distribution of alcoholic liquor. Then it just finishes with, furthermore, the mayor of a city with a population of 55,000 or less, or the president of a village with a population of 55,000 or less, may have an interest in the manufacture, sale, or distribution of alcoholic liquor, as long as the council or board over which he or she presides has made a local liquor commissioner appointment that complies with the requirements of section 4-2 of this act. So the key problems that we come up with on this, the language that's important that we just read in there, is the conflict of interest because of a direct interest in the sale, manufacture, or distribution of alcoholic liquors. That's how employees, it's been interpreted by the courts, that employees who are paid by the licensee have a direct interest in the sale, manufacture, or distribution because they're getting paid to work in that establishment.
Alderman McClanathan, that answer your query?
I believe so. It sounds like there's no part-time, full-time restriction there. It's just basically the A and B.
I just wrote it as
Yep.
it was originally queried, so.
Right, and, understood. And then furthermore, if we put in language of waiter or waitress, that doesn't sound like it conflicts with, the state statute either. Is that your interpretation?
It doesn't conflict. What Attorney Phillips and I disagree on is the need
it's
to reference it in the code.
Understood.
Because I think when the law provides that an 18-year-old can serve as a waiter or waitress, I think it's already covered. But the men,
Seen that.
but that's a natural disagreement among attorneys. So the language in any event that has been made in the amendment is pending before the council. Is there any other questions on the amendment? If not, all in favor of that amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There's no opposition. In the chair's opinion, it passes unanimously. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance with the amendment?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderperson Brashaw to approve ordinance 2016-54 with Alderman Chesney's amendment. This ordinance is not time sensitive, therefore it will stand in abeyance until the next regular meeting of the Freeport City Council pursuant to council rules. That concludes ordinance's first reading. We now move to resolutions. The first resolution is Resolution 2016-49. Madam Clerk, would you please read this resolution?
This is a resolution authorizing application to the Illinois Housing Development Authority for Round 2 of the Abandoned Properties Grant Program.
Before we get into the contents of the resolution, which was presented at the Committee of the Whole, I believe Director Mills had a slight amendment on the numbers. Director Mills, would you address that issue? And if it's appropriate for the council, we'll just simply amend the ordinance on its face with those numbers, since there's no substantive change. Director Mills?
Thank you, Mayor.
The number that was plugged in to the resolution that you received in your packet in section 2 of the ordinance was $87,500. That should have been $175,000. That would be the city's match. We are allowed to use IDA Blight Reduction Program funds as our match. So that would allow us to seek that maximum $250,000 award.
Are you amending the recital and the 250 to 425 or not?
I think it would be better worded as seek maximum funding in the amount of 250, because that is the maximum the program will allow to be funded.
Okay. So does everyone on the council understand the changes in section 2? Strike 87,500 and insert in lieu thereof 175,000. Okay. Is there leave to just simply amend this in his face since it's a numbers issue? Seeing no objection, leave is granted. Okay. Director Mills, I know that we covered this in committee of the whole, but for the benefit of the public and the viewing audience, would you summarize very briefly what we're doing in the abandoned properties ordinance resolution?
This is a resolution that would authorize the city staff to apply for this grant program. This is a program funded through the foreclosure filing fees. There's approximately $15 million in that fund at this time, and state legislation had created the abandoned property.
Funds out of this, would they be subject to the demolition bid process, such as we've been doing for some of the city demolitions?
Based upon the city having a procurement policy in the form of the purchasing policy and ordinances, that's the method we would be using to secure those services.
One more follow-up, Mayor.
Alderman McLaughlin.
Thank you. So in theory, given the restrictions on the BRP, not just in territory, but also in regards to amount used per home, et cetera, leveraging the up to $175,000 of the BRP as a match, would have a very real possibility of actually allowing us to do more demolitions if we were to be granted this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Alderperson Bradshaw.
motion to adopt?
Second.
It's moved by Alderperson Bradshaw, seconded by Alderman McLaughlin to adopt Resolution 2016-49. Any other questions?
Mayor,
Alderperson Miller.
just to clarify, so this is, you're seeking a grant for 250,000, which will give us approximately 25 demolitions, is that correct, what your approximate?
What we've estimated is that each demolition could be around $10,000, give or take, depending on the size of the home, if there's any asbestos-containing material, things like that. But yeah, the bulk of it, we would like to get 25 demolitions out of the 250,000. We are, however, looking to include a small amount of that, perhaps for board ups or for perhaps mowing of some particular properties that have been long abandoned.
Follow up?
Alderperson Miller.
And the match money comes completely from the blight reduction?
Yes.
Good.
Just so the council knows, there's no assurance we'll get a waiver, and there's no assurance we'll even get $75,000 with the distribution of this program being between Chicago, Cook County, the collar counties, and us. In the last round, we did have a previous grant. We got, what, $20,000?
$25,000.
We're hoping for better luck this time simply because they encouraged us to seek the waiver. So we lose no opportunity to get whatever funding we're going to be allocated by applying to this program for the max. Is there any other questions? If there are none, Madam Clerk, please take the roll on passage of Resolution 2016-49 with the understanding that the numbers have been amended on their face.
Ross?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Brashaw?
Aye.
Keister?
Aye.
Chesney?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
McLaughlin?
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
We now come to item 10, which is adoption of Resolution 2016-50. Madam Clerk, would you please read this resolution?
This is a resolution to ratify the mayor's signing on behalf of the City of Freeport, the memorandum of understanding between City of Freeport and Freeport Memorial Hospital, does business as FHN Memorial Hospital.
I'm going to summarize what this does and why we're doing it. FHN discovered very recently that they had the opportunity to qualify for a special 340B registration. This was a program that allows them to essentially pay less for certain drugs that they purchase, but it does not increase what they get for their services. So what it does is to lower their cost and offset some of the additional expense that FHN incurs by serving Medicaid, uninsured, and low-income patients. By the terms of the program, it was a very short turnaround. And by the terms of the program, they have to have the CEO of a governmental unit execute the memorandum of understanding in the form that you saw. They asked me to ratify this. I took it up with Attorney Phillips. He said in lieu of the time, Mayor, you can execute this, but we ought to bring it to the council for ratification. There is no financial impact to the city by the execution of the MOU. It does make reference to a contract. It was pointed out to them. We don't technically have a contract with them. The Department of Public Health does. The township does. The comment, which Attorney Phillips can respond to, is they said, well, in all of the areas where we've done the program, these being the consultants and attorneys for them, we've always had the city or municipality execute the documents. And we've had them done either by the city manager, the city administrator, or the mayor. That's the background in this ratification resolution.
Mayor.
Alderperson Brashaw.
Thank you. I talked to two medical professionals today, and they were all for this program, and they were glad the mayor went ahead and signed it. They said sometimes they do get busy, too, with getting the paperwork done, and it does have to be pushed through rather quickly. One of the doctors I spoke to said, we are a community hospital. We do not deny anyone service, and it is sometimes hard for people to afford some of these drugs that say they are indigent, or they come in, they lack insurance, they're not full-time employed, or they don't know how to apply for the Obamacare stuff, and they seek either antidepressants, antipsychotics. This will enable FHN to serve these people and actually be compensated somewhat by lowering their price substantially for people that can't afford these drugs. So I'm all for this, and I would like to make a motion to move it forward.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Alderperson Brashaw, and we'll give this one to Alderman Busker to approve Resolution 2016-50. Before we vote on it, is there any questions from the council? Okay, seeing none. Even though this is not a financial obligation, we will take a roll call. Madam Clerk?
Ross?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Brashaw?
Aye.
Keister?
Aye.
Chesney?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
McClanathan?
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
We now come to item 11, which is ordinances in draft form for compensation of elected officials. You'll notice that there's a number of different items that we're tracking the council's previous discussion, both in the last council meeting and committee of the whole. So we'll start with the duties of the treasurer as surveyed in other municipalities. There's a request from the council for information on that. Madam Clerk, do you want to summarize that? And Ms. Buss, could you also join us in the podium? I think there may be some questions for you.
The information was compiled by Deputy City Clerk Callie. She went through and looked at the treasurer positions for Loves Park, Belvedere, Mundelein, and then also Urbana. City Treasurer Buss has looked at the different job duties, and I think she has more information on that. I haven't had a chance to really go over it too much.
Any questions?
Mayor.
Treasurer Buss.
I did have a chance to look at these. Again, we were trying to find somebody that's comparable, apples to what I do. The first one, actually, Loves Park, is the closest that we found. What I did is I went through every single one of these, And where there's green, I do what they do. And where there's pink, they have someone else do it, whether in their organization or they hire it done or their auditors do it, whichever. While Loves Park does not have fire pension, as you know, roughly 40% of my job would be fire pension, they do accounts payable and payroll, which I do not do, and they have 3 full-time staff. Belvedere was the next one that we were using as a comparison, and the only thing that's the same is this part that I have circled where he spends roughly an hour a day doing daily deposits and banking and things like that. Everything else is done by somebody else. So I went through the rest of those towns, did the similar thing, and as I go on, Mundelein, someone else does everything, and it continues that way. So there is no true apples to apples. The closest one, as I mentioned, is Loves Park.
Mayor?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. Ms. Buss, how many employees do you have working with you currently?
It's just myself. I'm an office of 1.
May I carry on?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. I just want to say I value Ms. Buss for her abilities, her commitment, and dedication to the city of Freeport. She shows a lot of compassion for the employees. She currently makes $1,395 less than the position of the current city clerk. And meanwhile, she handles $73 million on a daily basis. That's a lot of money making multi-million-dollar decisions. I don't know if any of you know this, but the treasurer is now the lowest paid department head in the city of Freeport. I'm not trying to shame Ms. Buss by saying that. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows those current statistics, and I think she's doing a wonderful job.
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Ms. Buss, as per our conversation earlier today, can you list some of the other duties besides the treasury and the pensions and stuff that you take care of? Because I understand, like any other department head at City Hall right now, you have other duties due to the limited manpower that are not related to your department.
Sure. I know you missed the last meeting. If you go back to look at those paperwork, I provided 3 sets of duties and responsibilities, and I broke out what I do for the city in terms of banking, investments, day-to-day movement of money. And then the 2 other sections would be for police and fire. I said that about 85% of my job is police and fire pension work. And if you look at that, there's about 9 pages of typewritten duties that I have all spelled out as to things that I'm responsible for. I also do like motor fuel tax accounting, revolving loan fund, TIF funds. There's a lot of areas that I take care of.
Follow up, Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
And isn't it true that in addition to that, when the clerk and other people are out of the office, you also take care of people that come into City Hall? And is that a frequent thing, or is that something that only happens once in a while?
No, it happens quite often. Actually, if the 3 ladies that sit out in front of the office there are away from their desk, and we all pitch in and take turns and assisting people to find the other departments in the building. We don't just say, you know, go out here and turn right. We physically take them out and walk them to where the department is. And phone calls, we're constantly interrupted with phone calls, either that stay within the city or even that don't even belong to us and that we have to route to the county. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the council?
Mayor.
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up on one thing that Alderperson Bradshaw said. What was the amount that you said the treasurer is less than the clerk?
I believe the salary is currently $56,104, which is currently $1,395 less than our city clerk's position.
Okay, I definitely misheard you earlier. Thank you.
And Mayor?
Treasurer Buss.
One thing I would like to address is the difficulty with this office is I have no backup. There is no one now. If I do have to be out, if I know I'm going to be gone for 2 days for training or something, I'll try to take care of all the banking needs that I think may be coming up. There are times where the city clerk has gone to the bank for me if there's something that needs to be done. She was deputized to do that for me. But because I lost my full-time deputy years ago, all of that fell on my shoulders. And just to let you know how difficult that is, My husband was quite ill. He was in the Rockford Hospital, told that he may not make it that night. I had to come home from Rockford Hospital at 11 o'clock at night to do the pension payroll because nobody else can do it. I had no backup. I went back to the hospital. He had open heart surgery the next day, was told he's not going to make it through the night. At midnight, I had to leave his side and go home or come back here, work till 4 o'clock in the morning doing pension payroll because I have no backup. It's ridiculous. Just this summer, I had major surgery. I had surgery at 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon. And at Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, I had to come in and move money. That is ridiculous that there isn't cross-training and that I don't have support. It's entirely too much work for one person, but the problem is no one knows how to do what I do. They're not authorized to do what I do. And the city is in grave danger if something literally, if I walk out of here and got hit by a bus, you're all in trouble. Significantly in trouble. I just thought you should know that.
Pleasure of the council. First, are there any other questions?
Mayor?
Alderman Ross.
Nah, this is not a question, but this is just to commend you on what you've done, because I know every word you said is true. There ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If anybody can't see that, well, time to get a new pair of glasses. Thank you.
The council does have a draft of an ordinance in front of you. This may serve as a starting point for discussion.
Do you need me still?
Why don't you stay for a while?
Mayor,
Alderman Keister?
if you're referring to the compensation ordinance, I've been looking at this now, and I understand why with the city clerk, we're doing a 0% for the first year. But I understand that our current treasurer is running again, and with her salary being the point it is, I am not comfortable in any way, shape, or form giving her 0% the first year and then one half, and one half. I think we need to do a little bit better than that to try to bring her back up. I'm not saying a tremendous one, but instead of 0, one half, maybe 1, or 1 half, 1, and 1. Because I think she's earned it and deserved it. She's got 20-some years' experience doing this, and she does the work of 2 or 3 people. I don't know, does anybody else feel that way?
Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry, Alderman Ross?
Yes, I want to back up what Alderman Keister said. She's got over 20-something years in there, and she's doing one heck of a job. So we've got to, when we got employees like that, we got to recognize them. And that's the only way we're going to keep them, is to recognize them. And when we say that we got sacrifices, I think she'd went above and beyond the sacrifices. And there you go. I mean, like you said, if you can't see it, get a new pair of glasses.
Alderman Clem.
Mr. Mayor, the main thing I was just going to bring up, I think the most important thing is, as you take a look at moving forward, is that you somebody gets cross-trained in the position. So we don't get into those places where the things that Mrs. Buss brought up that she had to do. So that's all I wanted to put in there, but I do recognize the fact of longevity and, you know, what do we do for the next few years here, so.
Mayor,
Alderperson Brashaw.
thank you. And I know you might think I'm out of line, but I'd like to see them be able to maybe sometime hire us a very, very part-time deputy clerk, say 10 hours a week, just to do some backup assistance. And or if somebody else decides to run for her position, that there'd be some training there available.
I would like to keep the discussion centered on the compensation for the treasurer. I think there are other issues here I made a note of my own pad about cross-training. Right now, I'd like the council to decide what they'd like to do with the draft ordinance.
I got one more question, Mayor.
Alderman Ross?
Ms. Buss, you get 2 weeks of paid vacation, correct?
No. No, as elected officials, we are not entitled to vacation, paid accrued vacation or accrued sick. And so we are paid to do the job within a certain term. And so if we have our job done and we can arrange to get a few days off, we can. I've never ever taken a week's vacation. I'll take a day here or there. But we do what we need to do.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. The only thing I'd note at this time for the discussion is, while with as many years of experience as you had, it may be a safe bet that maybe no one will run against you. We don't know 100%. Assuming probably if you're putting money on it, it might. Well, anyway, we won't even get into that. But the idea being, when we're looking at the numbers here, we kind of have to look at what do we. In the event that we don't know who it is, just what do we think is an appropriate number for the position? I suppose it's a little different with when we were talking about the other one because we know it's going to be a new person, but here I think we can't lose sight of the fact that we just need to establish what do we think is appropriate for the position and then set it accordingly.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. I think the conversation was two parts. I think the first conversation was would it make sense at this juncture to create this as a part-time position? I don't sense that that is getting any traction on that idea. What is, as Alderman McClanathan stated, the voters are going to decide who fills this position, like the mayor's position, the city clerk position. What is the appropriate dollar amount for this position, given the workload? I would also share the concerns, and I'm sure our great director will come up with some sort of cross-training mechanism that will work with this particular elected office, so nobody in this position feels as if they don't have any reserve in the event of an emergency. So where we're at today is, I believe it was drafted 0, 0.5, 0.5, and 0.5, and then the discussion would be as if that's an appropriate number or if it needs to go higher or lower.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I would like to make an amendment to this, to the salary, to be 0.5 for the first year, 1 for the second year, 1 for the third year, and 1.5 for the fourth year.
I'll second it.
Yes, if I may, I've been asked to repeat that.
Would you repeat that for the benefit of the clerk?
0.5 for the first year, 1% for the second year, 1% for the third year, and 1.5% for the fourth year.
Madam Clerk, do you have sufficient information, or do you need a written copy?
No, I have it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. There's a motion and a second, so this amendment is on the floor. Discussion.
Mayor.
Discussion is in order only on the amendment. Alderperson Miller.
So on the original, right here before us, over a 4-year time frame, it would have given a 1.5% increase, and you're proposing a 4%?
Yes.
Mayor, how do you feel about that with negotiations and such that?
I think it's the will of the council to decide elected official compensation.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
If I may respond to that, having sat with unions through contract negotiations and stuff, I have never heard anything mentioned during the contract negotiations of comparing elected official salaries to the salaries that we're doing. So I do not feel personally that it would have any effect whatsoever.
Well, I can tell you, Alderman Keister, if I might share this with you, is the compensation for elected officials does come up during the union negotiations. And when it's serves purpose needs, they throw it at you, and when there's no real increase, people are equally forgetful. I'm not saying that you should govern by union negotiations, but to say it has no impact, I think would be maybe a little bit stretching.
Mayor.
But I will tell you that the one thing that people do look at is what we're doing across the board. That comes up all of the time, and that's one of the reasons that we haven't adjusted this and other fronts, but will do so at a future date. Alderperson Miller?
I was just thinking.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney?
I can't let you off that easy, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to circle back to the question that was posed to you. Not in an interest of getting you in a gotcha moment, but I do think that your 12 years as mayor is reflective of experience that would shed a lot of light on this issue. My main concern is the impact it does have on labor negotiations. My second, probably in this order, my first concern is that the people we represent are not receiving these types of increases. The second concern I would have is what signals this sends to the labor negotiations. The third is the impact that this would have on non-bargaining. And would you weigh in, even in a delicate manner, as to how we can kind of figure out and thread the needle on this? So the proposed ordinance was 0.5, 2 through 4. This particular ordinance is much more aggressive from Alderman Keister, and was hoping you could weigh in on this.
As I recall, you had 4 points, so I'm trying to remember all of them, with them being union negotiations. First of all, I prefer not to declare pro or con on a particular amendment. I have a problem with that. Here's what I would like you to think about. Let's think about the duties of the treasurer. Let's think about how much money they're in charge of investing, the responsibilities of moving money from place to place, and doing, by the way, all these things with minimum staff. So ask yourself the question of, with the assembled knowledge that Ms. Buss represents, what's fair in light of all of the things going on in the city for a sustained period of time? Now, the second thing is that I will readily concede there's no assurance that Ms. Buss will be the treasurer 7 months from now. And I'm not saying you should set the compensation only according to who's the incumbent or whether you like or dislike that person. But I do think that it is fair for the council to say what's an appropriate amount of money, and is it fair for that person to have one of the lower salary ranges that we have in the city. Now, I will also say that the finance position has been separated a long time ago from treasurer. So there are financial responsibilities that are distributed in this city and most other cities across Illinois. It's not all done by the treasurer. But does the treasurer fulfill an important function? Yes, they do. So that's why I'm reluctant to declare this is a good salary, that's not such a good salary. Let's talk about the increases. It seems to me that one of the questions that the council has to ask and answer is what is an appropriate increase, and is it consistent across elected officials' range? You know, we've been talking about freezing some altogether and then adjusting others. There's been a sort of an established pattern that has been in place as long as I can recall for the last 20 years. And there's been a pattern and a custom, not legal, but just custom, to say, okay, we're not going to treat salary increases differently for the clerk, the treasurer, the mayor, and others unless there's an awfully good reason for that. So I would urge some consistency unless you see an awfully good reason to the contrary. And the duties of the treasurer and where they rank in relation to other department officials may be such a reason. Let's go to the last issue of labor. It is true that any increase that is granted is going to be cited in those negotiations. But I also want to bring to your attention that in most of those negotiations, at least 1% is on the table. And it is fair to say that when we adjust non-union salaries subsequently down the road here, at least something in that nature and probably more might be on the table as well. So for those of you who are looking for equity between what we do for other employees and elected officials, I would urge you to take this to the bank. We will do what we can do according to across the board for union, non-union, that we can afford and that is ratified or is decided by an arbitrator. So am I disturbed by 1% versus 0.5%? Not really. But you know, if the will of the council is look, we have uncertainty in these times. We have established a pattern that we don't look at salaries as the primary motivator in public service. And you make a decision that you want to err on the side of conservatism, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think what you have to balance is where are we going to put our resources, and what is this position worth, and what is an appropriate incremental increase, if any, from year to year. And I'll live with whatever this council chooses to do. And I hope that that addresses this without saying this is what I think you ought to do.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor?
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
With the help of Alderperson Brashaw here, she figured out the numbers for us tentatively, and if we go with my proposal, the first year the salary would be $56,385. Second year with 1% would be $56,949. Third year with 1% would be $57,518, and the fourth year at 1.5% would be $58,381. And if I may continue, one of the things I do want to say is, yes, we do have to take into consideration what effect we do with this is going to have on contract negotiations. But keep in mind right now, with the way things are going with arbitration, the stretching out of the contracts and stuff, we're not going to have a period of time, anytime in the near future, where we're not in contract negotiations. So do we do the right thing and make an increase, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this, something that's fair, and do it now, or do we wait till the contract negotiations are over and we're not going to affect them and we'll never get it done? I mean, that's the bottom line. I don't think there's going to be a period of time, anytime in the near future, when we're not going to be in some type of contract negotiations.
Any other comments, questions? On the amendment, please, on the amendment. Alderman Clem.
Yes. Some of you can shoot me, some of you can't, but I think one statement that was made that was very true. Couple statements. No one's guaranteed who's going to be here in 7 months, number one. And number two is consistency. It's one of those things. Do I agree with some areas that they ought to be more? The answer to that's correct. But you've turned around and said on one hand that you're going to pay this person this amount and decrease it and pay 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, whatever. You know, to me, you got to be consistent.
Mayor?
You're dealing. Go ahead, Sal.
Alderperson Brashaw.
Thank you. If we were consistent, she would have a full-time clerk also. You got to think of the amount of work there is, and with no backup at this time. I know I'm debating with you, Mr. Clem, or Alderman Clem. I'm not trying to put you in a spot or anything. I'm just saying, though, that the salary difference wouldn't be much different because she already is starting at a behind point. And there again, without an assistant, without a deputy clerk, it's very difficult to do her job.
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
And keep in mind, not all of us voted for that salary for the city clerk, and not all of us agree with it, but the majority voted that in. I would personally like to see the clerk get the same type setup, but I don't think that's going to happen. But we've got, and I can't emphasize this enough, we've got to start taking care of our employees and making sure they get what they deserve. That's something that it's been neglected for a long time with city employees, especially non-bargaining unit personnel. We have two standards. We have the standard for the bargaining unit personnel, and we have the standard for the non-bargaining unit personnel, elected officials. That needs to change, or we're going to start losing people, and instead of having professional people with experience, we're going to have fresh kids out of college that don't know what they're doing because that's all we're going to be able to afford and get. So, I mean, whatever you want to decide on this is fine. I think this is a fair compensation. The rest of it's up to you.
I'm going to speak to a couple of things that you just said, Alderman Keister, against my own instincts. I think that we need to take into account the total compensation package of people. And I respectfully disagree that employees in the city of Freeport are, in a sense, mistreated or not compensated appropriately or fairly. And I base that upon the comparables that we are doing with other policemen in other municipalities and other firemen, and the salaries that we've also showed the council in comparables. And you know, this is not only a matter of the compensation that people receive in their paycheck. Compared to most of the people in Freeport, we have the most generous health care plan, even after the changes, of anybody here. I don't know too many people that pay $36 a month for a single plan. And that plan is very personal to me because it was never adjusted for 8 years for reasons I can't fathom. And yet it puts the city in financial jeopardy, and it's totally out of character with even other municipalities. So on healthcare alone, we have been very generous, too generous for our own pocketbook. And with all due respect, very few people in my family have been employed in the public sector, and they don't have a pension that is as generous as that as we have given to police and firemen and other people in this state, a pension system that has not been properly funded, a pension system that is in trouble, and a pension system that needs to be affordable. And so I'm all for the fact that we should be consistent and that we should compensate people. Where I'm taking objection is in front of the reporters and the public saying, man, it's a tough deal for people in the public sector. What is happening in Illinois is we've been making pledges that we can't cash in on for a long, long time. And I'm embarrassed for our state that we've done that. And I think that if you compare across the board, there is some credibility to those of you who have said, let's look around us at what's happening out here when, you know, they're not getting increases, they're paying more for their utilities, and they have to pay more for their health care, and it hasn't worked so well for them. So I'm all for the fact that this is a council decision. But I don't think that anybody should be under the illusion that the people who work for this city, whether they are non-union or union, somehow are suffering behind the caboose. With all due respect, I don't buy that. And I don't buy it for a moment. Compared to the suburbs, compared to places like Elk Grove or along the lakefront, way up in Lake County, yeah, our salaries are low, but so is our cost of living. I don't know any other municipality in Northwest Illinois, let alone in the Chicago area, where you can buy a $100,000 home and it's as nice as we have in Freeport and pay $100,000. You will pay $500,000 or more for that same home. So these things to me are also part of the overall picture, and I realize it's a little afoot from the salary amendment. But I've listened to this comment made many, many times, and I've chosen this opportunity to say what I think about it. And I hope that that's okay with everybody here. Further discussion. We have an amendment on the floor. And if we choose to put this amendment on, keep in mind again, I believe this would be ordinance 2016-55. We still will be holding this over for further discussion. Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry, Mayor. This ordinance was just drafted. It's not fully recorded into the agenda, so it would actually just be placed on the next agenda.
Okay. So it doesn't have a number.
No, that's correct. It was just put in the packet just as a draft.
Okay. Thank you for the correction. So what's the will of the council? We have a motion on the floor. It was seconded to amend the draft for 0.5%, then 1 and 1 and 1.5. Is there any other points to be made or discussion?
Call the vote.
Madam Clerk, take the vote on the amendment.
Ross?
Aye.
Miller?
No.
Busker?
No.
Brashaw?
Aye.
Keister?
Aye.
Chesney?
No.
Clem?
No.
McClanathan?
No.
Motion failed.
Okay. Is there discussion or a motion on the ordinance in draft form to move it to the council agenda next time?
Mayor,
Alderman McClanathan.
I'd move to put this on the agenda as in draft form for next council meeting.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Attorney Phillips, does that constitute first reading, or will first reading occur at the next meeting?
First reading will occur at the first meeting. It would be better language to say, to bring it in for first reading rather than draft form. I'm not sure what draft form.
Do you have a problem with that?
No, it just says draft on here, so.
Okay.
Whatever, language is fine with, as council recommended.
Okay. Very good. There's a motion second. All in favor of bringing that forward in first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Is there any other discussion under this ordinance in item 11? I think there was a report due on mayor duties for a part-time elected official. Did the council want to hear that report or just digest it tonight? Alderman McClanathan?
What was the last part you said? Did we want to hear it, or what did you say?
Do you want to discuss that tonight and what Attorney Phillips came up with, or we just distributed the report? Do you want to consider it?
My preference would be, it was distributed, I believe, or emailed out, and discuss it later.
Okay.
On the,
Do that.
in regards to the duties, because we're not going to be able to make a decision on that tonight anyway.
Okay, sounds good. We'll go to item 12, which is report of department heads. Attorney Phillips?
Do you want that on for first reading at the next meeting?
The draft ordinance on there. Well, could we address that? When we passed the, are you saying we're running out of time if we want to have a first and second reading?
Well, you have a deadline of November 16th.
Correct.
Pass it, which means you're only going to have one regularly scheduled council meeting before that deadline. That's in case you wanted to not pass it on the first reading, if you want to lay it over again for a normal second reading.
Well, we do have a second alternative, which is we can have a special meeting
Sure.
before the committee of the whole, if you want to have separation in time.
I think we're going to have to, because the whole intent of moving it back was to give us the option to see what the results were.
Okay. Is everybody in accord with this, or are there some questions?
Mayor,
Alderperson Miller.
so we're talking about as if it were a part-time position, but we haven't talked about if it's full-time. So do we need to address that draft ordinance as if it were full-time?
That's the will of the council. What I heard was is we're going to discuss that extensively
Both?
next time.
Okay.
Both of them.
Good with that timeframe?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. We'll move on to item 12, reports of department heads. The first item was community development, and that is to recommendation for a grant acceptance for the Downtown Accessibility Improvement Program. Director Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. As City Council may remember, they previously approved creating a downtown accessibility grant program for 2016, and Community Development came up with such program. The goal of that is to provide financial assistance in the form of a 75% reimbursement of approved project costs to a downtown business or property that would increase the accessibility. The program's been advertised, and we have had several inquiries, but as to so far, we've only had one application received. So from that end, we've extended that for yet another month, or till November 4th, so that other potential applicants can finish their applications. But the application that has been received is from This Is It Eatery. They applied for grant funds in the amount of $5,063, which is 3/4 of the total estimated costs of $6,750 for construction of an exterior ramp on the east side of the restaurant at 10 through 12 Chicago Avenue. The ramp would be ADA compliant, would not intrude on the sidewalk right of way. And I did, before the meeting, distribute some pictures of what the site looks like, as well as the ramp drawing. So if you would be able to take a look at those. The ramp would face south with steps facing north at the end of the landing. And removal of any The non-compliant sidewalk and pavers would occur by Public Works, who would also pour replacement sidewalk once the ramp is complete. There was a Historic Preservation Commission meeting who reviewed the application and issued a certificate of appropriateness for this. Their recommendation was that, if possible, more decorative features be installed on the iron railing. And then the committee that the grant program established, which is myself, the city engineer, 2 representatives of RAMP, and a representative of the Stevenson County Advocates for Disability, we reviewed the application as well, and the group found it to be complete and worth recommending to City Council. The recommended award is for the program maximum of $7,500 in order to cover any unforeseen costs that arise during construction, with the understanding that it's desirable for the lowest cost to be incurred. But that would prevent somebody from starting a project and perhaps not being able to finish it.
Mayor,
Alderperson Bradshaw.
motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. It's moved by Alderperson Bradshaw, seconded by Alderman McClanathan to approve the grant award in the amount of $5,063 for an accessibility of an exterior ramp, on the east side of Chicago Avenue for This Is It Eatery. Is there any additional discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Clem.
Alex, just a quick question if I could. Just after looking at this and decide 2 of them, as a matter of fact, is it to be made out of steel, or is it to be made out of wood?
Poured concrete.
Poured concrete on the whole thing. Okay, thank you. But the sides will be made out of.
There'll be steel railings.
Okay, that was question. Second question, and just looking at the pictures, and I'm totally for it. I just asked this question because I don't want you to get the whole thing done and say, yeah, that's wonderful or not wonderful. I see those 2 gas meters sitting there. And the only thing that bothers me as I look at it is the entrance into it. You know, and I know relocating gas meters are a problem, but you've got them drawn into the one thing. I'm just asking about it because it goes back to the end of their building, and that's really in front of the next building the way it looks. But I just want to make sure you check that out and make sure everything's okay there.
Yeah, we believe there'll be enough room at the landing there to provide the required space to get onto and off of that ramp. But you're right, they are right there.
Okay. Don't know. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Director Mills.
Was the motion for the 5,000 amount or to go up to the 7,500? It's will of the council. I just, for clarification.
I thought I was seconding the recommendation for the full amount.
Okay.
But
I'm
is that what
sorry.
your motion was?
So is the motion for the full amount?
Yes.
For 7,000 as opposed to 5,000?
7,500 was the maximum that could be awarded. The recommendation of the panel was to award 7,500. Not that it all needs spent, but in the event when construction starts, if something becomes an underground additional cost or something, that money would be available then.
Okay, forgive me, I read your memo a different way. Are we awarding then the full amount and 100% of the cost, or 75% of the cost? And if it's higher than that, then we will go up to 7,500.
Yes, maximum of 7,500.
100% of the cost?
No, 3/4.
Okay.
75%.
Got it.
That was my motion.
What, pardon?
That was my motion.
All right, so a maximum of 7,500, 75% of the cost.
Yes.
Okay. Does everybody understand?
Yes.
Even the chair understands now. Madam Clerk, would you take a roll call on the motion to approve?
Ross?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Brashaw?
Aye.
Keister?
Aye.
Chesney?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
McClanathan?
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Okay, the second item under community development is approval of a bid for demolition of a blight reduction program, namely for 460 South State and 527-529 South State. These, by the way, are blight reduction grant awards. Director Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. On Friday, October 14th, we held a bid opening for the demolition of those 2 properties. As you can see in the bid tab, we did receive 5 bids. One was not read because it wasn't compliant. It was missing the addendum that was required to be added or acknowledged. But out of the ones that were opened in red, the apparent low bid was JMP Trucking Incorporated, $15,500 to take care of both those properties. The intent, as with the other properties in the BRP program that Homestart now has ownership of, is to improve them and then either use them in a community-oriented fashion or to sell to adjacent landowners if they're interested in purchasing. So at this time, I am recommending award to JMP Trucking, Inc. in the amount of $15,500.
Mayor.
Alderman Busker.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's moved by Alderperson Busker, seconded by Alderman Chesney, to approve the grant award to JMP Trucking for both properties in a total amount of $15,500. That is the correct amount, Director Mills, is it not?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor.
Questions? Alderman Keister.
Yeah, just one quick question. I noticed between the next lowest bid and this one, there was almost $4,400 difference. Is there did they made all the requirements, they're going to be able to clean it up and stuff at that price?
When I spoke to that bidder this morning, they stated that with this particular one, they would be able to handle all the foundation walls coming out, but they stated that might not be the case going forward every time. So I had a sense that there might be some concurrent project that they would be able to somehow save on tipping fees or something along those lines. That wasn't apparent during the bid reading, but that was what I heard this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Clem.
Alex, a quick question on GMP was, I'm just making a clarification here. Weren't they the ones that we gave some to on kind of a limited basis before?
That was G&G.
Okay.
We had one where they had some additional restrictions.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Further questions? There's a motion and a second for approval. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please take the roll on the motion to approve the bid to JMP Trucking in a total amount of $15,500.
Ross?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Brashaw?
Aye.
Keister?
Aye.
Chesney?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
McClanathan?
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Is there anything else from community development?
Not at this time.
Okay, any questions from the council? Director of Finance.
No report, Mayor.
Okay. Alderman Chesney.
Just one comment, Director. What do you see as the process of cross-training with the city treasurer's position? Is that something that, over the course of the next month or so, that we could have something tangible as an action plan? I mean, we certainly don't want to be blindsided by, learning that this office is in fact not being covered or struggling to be covered absent the sitting city treasurer. So my request would be from the city council. It doesn't have to necessarily be in formal writing and very elaborate, but what would be our contingency plan in the event of an emergency would certainly be a strong suggestion.
Director.
No comment, Mayor, just execute. Yeah, well, what I'll try to do, find out from the treasurer what is legally that I can do or cannot do, because there are things I'm sure that there are separation of duties that I am not allowed to do based on the audit. So I'll find out exactly what I can do and cannot do. From there, we develop a plan how I can be a backup, and who else can be a backup for the additional responsibility that I won't be able to fulfill.
Thank you, sir.
If I might add, Alderman Chesney, because of segregation of duties, our answer may not even lay in the finance department. I have an idea, but I want to research it further. Okay. This time I will turn to the fire chief. Do you have some items of interest, Chief?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to remind everyone that October is Fire Prevention Month, and this year, as well as in previous years, all firefighters will be visiting every grade school within the community, both public and private, Our target audience is grade school children. We anticipate reaching over 2,000 grade school children this year, giving them fire safety lessons and discussions. And the good part of that is they take that home to their siblings and their parents and grandparents. So immediately we reach and contact 2,000 people, but that number expands when they go home and tell their families about it too. So it's something the firefighters look forward to every year and enjoy participating in, and so that's currently underway.
Any questions for the chief?
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
I just wanted to make a quick comment that I appreciate what they do, and having done it, it is a lot of work and a lot of time involved. However, I do know for a fact that there have been several incidences in the past where children have been saved because of these programs. One that comes in mind, this has been quite a few years ago now, where a child went through our program. There was smoke detector come up. She seen smoke coming from the basement, and she grabbed her little brother or sister, I can't remember at the time, and ran out the door because of school. That's what the firefighters told them what to do. So the program does work. It has saved, possibly saved lives and injuries. So I applaud them for what they do.
Thank you. Police Department.
Just a quick update on our new employees. We have 2 in the academy that are doing well and progressing nicely. They just started week 5, so they have 7 more weeks. And we also have 2 that are in their last month of field training. So by mid-November, they should be out in the squads by themselves, contributing individually.
Questions from the council? Not. Director Dole?
Thank you, Mayor. I passed out 2 weeks' worth of work reports. If you have any questions on those, great. I do also want to state we started leaf season today, so we're picking up leaves from here on until it snows. And an update on the utility trucks. The mayor and I reviewed the specs. We went out for, we finalized the specs today, and all the specs were hand delivered to each vendor locally, and we emailed a couple of them for the out-of-town vendors. The bid opening will be October 30th, and it should come to council on the first week of November. So I'll take any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Okay. Not. Last is the city engineer and water and sewer reports. I know that Mr. Gallagher has compiled quite an extensive update on a number of different issues.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to provide you with a list of a lot of different things, so I put it in writing, so if you don't catch everything I come across, you can follow back up with me either in private about it or take this information to your constituents should they have any questions. Specifically starting with the boat dock project that was completed. I passed along a punch list. I did reach out to the Friends of the Peck to see if, from a user standpoint, was there anything that we missed. I know they were going to look into it. I did not receive a response, though. So they intend to complete those failures within the project, get those fixed, and then we're about to start talking about getting that out of the water as fall is coming to an end here in the next 2 months. So city street program has been completed for the year. We did the crack sealing, microsurfacing, and mill and overlay program. The last 2 things we had on our punch list for the street program was to do some additional pavement markings in the pedestrian crossings near our school zones. So you might have saw that at Mosley, Fruit Avenue in those sections. So we completed that. And then we were waiting on ComEd to relocate a power pole at Fruit and Center, which is why there's a missing piece of sidewalk that will get installed here shortly. So I will get final costs to you here probably in a month's time or a couple weeks' time as soon as I have some availability. I like to break that out by street for every program so you can see exactly what your money goes towards. Everything from our construction inspection, which was virtually no cost this year because we did it with our interns and myself, and show you where your tax dollars go, your motor fuel tax dollars, that is. Carnegie Library project is approximately 50% complete. They finished the roof this week. They have pretty much have all the walls framed in. HVAC, electric, plumbing is all going in. So now we're to the point of exterior services, bringing new services to the building, the new water service, the new electrical service will all be underground. And we're also going to take this opportunity with the $50,000 that council set aside additional to the original contract to waterproof the exterior of the building. We had a little bit of leaking back in the spring when we had significant rain events. We thought this would be the time to do it. Actually, the foundation we've exposed looks pretty good, so that's a good site, but we're going to do that with in-kind services from the Water and Sewer Department. Our sewer crews digging the trench. We borrowed from a local contractor a mini excavator, and we're going to lay that pipe ourselves, but the material in the project will be billed back to our budget. Also within that budget, we've looked at a security system, so we'll have a 4-camera security system, one for each floor, and then one in the, I guess I'd say the bathroom congregating area by the stair elevator in the basement floor. So there'll be 2 in the basement, 1 on each the main floors, and they'll be run by a security system that hopefully we'll have piped over across the street as well. So that way police would have the ability to look in on that. They'll also include 2 key entry doors along with a lockout for the elevator system. So pretty much what we have here on the entrance doors, you got to get a key after 5. After that, it'd be open to the or before that, it'd be open to the public. So we've included that. We also added the countertops and the cabinetry within the break rooms. So that'll be a nice addition to that project because we didn't have anything in the budget prior to that. So and then the rest of the project is on schedule. I've heard various rumors that things are or aren't. If you didn't hear it from myself or from Scott Winter, assume it's just rumors. We're the 2 handling the project along with his site superintendent. So if you have any questions on timeline or availability, let me know. Don't assume what you hear is fact. My hope is that because there are 5 Mondays in January, that we can hopefully move in during one of those 2 Mondays. That way we can have our last council meeting here on the, I believe, Martin Luther King Day, Tuesday, and then set up shop over those 2 weeks. That would hopefully allow a transition without having to get council packets out and things like that for us to make that move so that way we could set up with the new staff and everybody at the Carnegie in the first week of February. That would also provide an opportunity if we so chose to have a sort of an open house on a Monday. That way our constituents can see what went into the building, how it was changed, and take it from there without encumbering another council meeting. If that's in theory. We'll see where that goes, but that at least was the idea that I put forward with that. So contract water improvements, contract 1 has been done for a while, but I just wanted to mention that that is completed. We did go back in some areas and do some reseeding. We'll also follow back right away in the spring with any weed treatment or seeding issues to arise because there'll be some settlement with the freeze thaw as we go forward. So certainly not intending to abandon anybody. We also have tree replacement on that project, which I elect to do in the springtime. Traditionally, I was always a big fall planting of tree person until all of our trees died on the Jane Addams Trail because it got to 0 degrees in November 2 years ago. So I'm going to plant them in the spring. It'll also allow me to make constituent contacts with the homeowners and figure out what they actually want in the wintertime instead of trying to squeeze that in my schedule currently. Contract 2, this project's about 90% complete. The only section we have left is really just the paving, putting everything back together, and then a short stretch of concrete curb at Haven Court and Concord Drive. So I know that project to some seems like it's been forever open and under construction. However, I'll remind you, we're using all of our local contractors. Not all of our local contractors have 50, 60 people on their payroll. Some of them are, 10, 15 people. So that money's staying here in Freeport. Sometimes it just takes them a little bit longer versus the size of the contract for their manpower. So I would like to remind everybody of that. Not everybody has the substantial employee backing as some other agencies. So, but those are local contractors that work, your tax dollars staying in your community. Finally, contract 3, we completed a lot of our curb work today unexpectedly. So we're trying to get everything wrapped up on Empire Street here in the next roughly 2 weeks, get everything built here before hopefully Halloween. And then we're waiting on our construction permit for the section heading out Pearl City Road that changed. So What's nice about this is we have good weather here. Looks like the next 10 days, so we're just going to try to complete as much as possible. Probably the nicest addition to moving everything, water improvements, is you notice the utility lines are no longer right staring you in the face at Little Cubs Field. We have all those on one side of the road, on one-sided poles, and Frontier will be removing the secondary poles that are on the south side too. So that should clean up the right-of-way as far as utilities and make that park setting much visually pleasing. Moving back to contract 4, we did have, this is just mostly for council knowledge, it doesn't affect nearly as many constituents, but we did have a PRV failure in one of our fittings. We're still trying to assess exactly why that fitting is failing. We've had, I think, 6 or 7 to this date that have failed. And so we actually have our contractor contacting those homeowners just to verify if there's any kind of leaks going on with their unit as we assess how to move forward with possibly replacing that, or at least want to keep an eye on it. So if you get any calls about anybody that received the PRV unit, please let them know that they will be being contacted. So to follow up the Phase B project, one of the things that I've really tried to stress versus my time out in the field is to make sure that we do this project as cost effective as possible. Obviously, we have had a lot of rate discussions. We've had a lot of conversation about water utility improvements. But I did want to let you know that at least from a construction engineering standpoint, we potentially will be under the contract amount by about $250,000 just in the inspection side of it, because we're doing the majority of that in-house as well as the use of our interns this summer. So I mean, that's real dollars. It's $250,000 we'll potentially save here. And then I would expect to save about the same amount on between the 3 contracts, anywhere between another $250,000 to $500,000. So of the 8.75, I think that we had a long discussion one evening about, we should be substantially under that. So now I'm beginning to, through Fairgram, through myself, have conversations with EPA as what does that look like with that savings? Is that something that we can now recapture in additional projects, or does that money simply go back? So I tried to be good stewards of all the funds that we've had this summer, and to make sure that our tax dollars are expanded as far as they possibly can. And so that's pretty much my report.
Are there any questions from the council?
Mayor.
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. I have just a couple of very specific questions, if you don't mind. I've been asked this by constituents regarding the trail, the recreation trail, or whatever you want to call it, recreation path on Empire. What is happening at Burchard and Empire northeast corner? I've had a few complaints about the trees overgrown where people can't even walk on the path without hitting their heads on trees, and they're wondering if perhaps the path could be continued there, though I know we only approved it from Burchard to Park Boulevard.
Yeah, the northeast corner, if that's correct, of Burchard and Empire would not be part of this project. The issue there is we have our, the pressure zone ends at that intersection. Part of the issue is, and you'll see, I got to align the path a little bit different. We poured curb today a little bit different to miss the signal poles at the intersection. We would do something similar to that. However, I guess at this time, not necessarily a water sewer issue, more of a nuisance issue. But at this time, we have no intention of going across the street because we would pretty much do that with the continuation of that 16-inch water main and future improvements. I would guess we'd attempt to do all the way to 26 at some point.
Follow up?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
I basically told the constituents I didn't believe that would be developed, but I did say I would talk to the street department about perhaps trimming trees or bushes or something along there so people could walk on the sidewalk. My next corner that was brought up to me by 3 different people is the northwest corner of Stewart and Empire. The brickwork that is not built up there either. I thought maybe it was on hold, or maybe they were waiting to take a tree down.
No, I'm waiting on actual shop drawings for the block, the retaining wall block that will go there. I'm also going to replace the retaining wall at Park Boulevard and Empire, so it matches and kind of fix that corner as well. And then that same block will go at Stevenson and Westwood for that section there. So it's really we're really focused on clearing up water main. I can build a wall almost any time. Pavement and some of the things that are a little bit time sensitive, we've kind of jumped off on. So I realize it does not look the best, but it'll get very similar to the Jane Addams Trail. If you go between First McNess, that's the block that I'm looking for, and we'll make it all pretty.
One more, Mayor, if I may.
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you, and thank you for, I think everything looks wonderful. We've had a lot of compliments. These are just very specific questions from different constituents. These were actually Tom's constituents asking about Pearl City Road, north side. Can we do it now since it's all dug up? Can you please put the trail in from there all the way to the College Trail?
Well, certainly could, I guess would be the easiest way to say that. However, we have no funding for that. The issue is very unlikely that with a water and sewer loan that I could build a path about 12 feet away from our water trench. I think from a Water and Sewer Commission standpoint, that's not really the application of funds that was permitted. What we were typically replacing is, we take out a curb, we replace a curb that usually is connected to a driveway or a sidewalk, and you kind of get into that. Once we get over to the Pearl City Road section west of Parkview, from a maintenance standpoint, I want to push that trail as far away from the roadway as possible. It's going to be a semi-urban section where I'm anticipating plowing to be a little bit more brisk pace. To where if we're going to maintain this trail, I want to keep it a little bit further away. It also does not really justify in our construction plans to EPA that this is a water improvement. However, we are looking at the stormwater improvement that is required for the curb that we're going to install. So the biggest thing I can tell you is everything is going to be built as if there is a trail going in this year. It's just a trail's not going to go in with this funding because it would not be approved. So all the curb cuts, all the grading is going to be set to make that happen. We won't fill the ditch because obviously I need the ditch to be there without running a significant amount of storm sewer. But basically the cost to complete that section of the trail I've estimated is about $150,000. So it's not necessarily, although we're saving a lot of money on the Phase B project itself, it's not really a water expense. So we'd certainly hope if we could spend that $500,000 we've been able to save on water improvements, replacing the pipe on several of our sections that continually break. So, but everything will be designed and ready to go. So it would be a shovel-ready project for whenever is my hope.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Alderman Ross.
Yes, Director Gallagher, who will be monitoring your security cameras?
That's kind of an interesting question. I mean, we've talked a little bit about it internally, myself with Scott Winter, and I think we're going to have a primary setup in the basement because with water and sewer activity, we have that pretty much manned 24/7 in the building. We're rotating because we don't have somebody on lunch break. We always have somebody at the bill pay station where other departments are going to take lunch breaks and maybe not even be staffed at noontime. So we're looking at that to be semi-monitored, but at the end of the day, it's, we have the police department across the street. It's more of for video evidence and also for deterrent. We're not going to pay somebody to sit there and watch a monitor 24/7.
But you possibly follow up. You mean with the police department across the street, you'd be able to maybe move the monitor over there? I mean, transfer the screen or,
Well, I definitely want to
movement,
have
I
an
should say.
active monitor in view of somebody who's in the building 24/7 or our department that's in the building 24/7. But as far as, somebody scanning the rooms and things like that, if we can hook up a feed to the police department, that would be beneficial. We'd certainly like to do so. I'm anticipating a security system where we may be able to log in via our own phones, things like that. But obviously you also have security clearance issues when you start doing that. To be considered as, how many people are you going to allow to witness your security cameras? So that's a double-edged sword. The point is that we would have that video surveillance to be able to be utilized if there was an incident for more or less to hand over to the police department as evidence.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
Just a couple questions on Carnegie, kind of a little follow-up on Alderman Ross here. When you mentioned security cameras, you only mentioned 3, floor 1, 2, 3. Didn't mention any exterior? Or do we have capabilities adding cameras? Because that seems like very few.
Well, Scott and I talked about that specifically. Here we have no cameras. When we go into the building, we have the 4 locations for the 4 cameras that we've picked out, all cover all of the access points to the building. So with the police department across the street, we felt that the exterior was probably pretty much monitored on its own. and that we would have, anybody entering and exiting the building would be captured by that. The program is expandable. It's really easy to update and expand off of. Those are conversations I'd like to have with the police department. We basically picked out what system we wanted to do recently, but as far as exterior cameras, that would be an add-on. But I'd like to sit down with Chief Barkalow and go over what they would feel would be a security issue from their standpoint, and make sure that that jives with what we're trying to do.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Clem?
just to follow up. Would that mean then that all access to the building would basically be done through the basement after hours type stuff?
It would be key swiped like this building is on either side. So whether or not we have, we'd be able to set those hours to whatever we wanted, so we could open up for council meetings. The biggest thing would be to lock the elevator so it does not go to the second floor, which would be unoccupied. So obviously the ADA entrance is through the basement, the main floor, you could come in off the street and that would be open, but there'd be no reason, because it's staff area, for anybody to go to the second floor with, at least without the company of an employee.
Could I do follow-up?
Alderman Clem?
This may sound like the stupidest question in the world, but just so we're on the same page. The elevator will not be active to go to the second floor, but if you were on the second floor and there was a fire or something, it could be or not.
That's my understanding. It's basically going to keep you from going up.
Okay.
It's not going to stop somebody that's up there from going down.
Not that you want to jump in an elevator anyway when there's a fire, but just checking. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mayor?
Alderman Keister?
Yeah, I have to say that from a firefighter's aspect, you don't jump in an elevator when there's fire, you take the stairs, so we'll leave it at that. Anyway, Engineer Gallagher, when when Alderman Clem and I toured the Carnegie Library, we had discussed some improvements you wanted to make, such as the louvers up on the second floor turned into a window and a few other things. And at that time, I believe we requested a want list with a price on it from you as to what these improvements would cost, and we haven't seen anything yet. Is that in the works? Are we too late to try and replace those louvers with a window? Have they been covered already, or where are we at on that?
We are proceeding with that. It's pretty much a must, I guess I would say, to work that into the budget. So where we are at now with some of the additions and subtractions, when I met with Scott last week, is we're about $12,000 over our budget. Now, that could seem like a lot. I guess to me it's not, because it's a $2.2 million project. However, in moving forward with some of this stuff, we have a lot of open-ended questions on a few of the items. I don't want to not proceed with a project over $12,000 on a $2.2 million project, because some of those aspects involve the security system and things like that. So one of the things that we've cut, at least at this time, is the monument sign out in the front. It's a standalone project. It could be completed at any time. So we're looking at different things like that to make sure that when we end this whole thing, we have it within the council's approved budget. However, right now we're trending a little bit above, mostly because there's things that we want to make sure that we do, and we can always skim back towards the finishings or things like that at the end, things that could be done at any time or in next year's budget.
Follow up, Mayor?
Alderman Keister?
I just want to make sure that things like the louvers up on the second floor that should be turned into a window and stuff, if we don't do them now, they're going to wind up being more expensive and more difficult to do later. So I guess my question is, how many projects like that are we possibly looking at that might be an additional budget?
We've been fortunate enough, honestly, the biggest hit to the budget is waterproofing the foundation, which I think most people would say it probably should have been in there in the first place. The other thing that's not in the budget is the storm windows, which, that's another thing that we're going to need to budget for, along with tuck pointing in the future. One thing that we really hasn't really been out there, and I'd be happy to proceed with it, is actually looking for opening it up to donations. I've kind of talked to it here, but I've never really received any formal support behind that, about simply putting something on our website if anybody was encouraged. It wouldn't take more than a few donations to cover 90% of what we're doing, but ultimately Scott and I are happy with what we've been able to accomplish with the current budget that we have. I don't think we've left anything out. That window was probably the one thing that should have never been out. But ultimately, it is back in. So we've covered everything, the long-term aspects of tuck pointing and window treatments. with the storm windows is a different discussion, and the monument sign is really kind of the only things we haven't touched.
Mayor?
Final follow-up, Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
You mentioned about possibly doing donations and stuff, which I think wouldn't be a bad idea, you know, whether you just do it for the donations or monument plaque or whatever. But what do we need to proceed with that? Do we need something from the council for you to be able to proceed with that, or how do we get that started?
I think that the first thing we have to do is to work out some of the legalities on it and then bring it to the council.
Okay, and a follow-up, how long would it take for us to, for that to be done, so we could see at least a rough draft on that?
We'll have something for you the first meeting in November.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
One more in the Carnegie, if I could. Did we come out okay painting-wise? As we changed over from us doing it to them doing it, remember in the
Oh.
first stage?
Yeah, we've actually, it's worked out fairly well. I mean, I don't think that we're gonna be disappointed with any of the changes that we've made. For the most part, we've covered all the bases you would expect. The biggest thing Scott and I have been working with is, you know, when it comes to like exterior site lighting, that was probably one of our bigger discussions, is making sure that we have enough feeds around critical items to where we can add lighting in the future. Same thing with the camera system. Everything that we want to have is to be adapted to later on, because obviously we haven't been in this building for 10 years. So, you know, we're going to probably have a little bit of trial and error when we get in there and say there's a few things that we'd like to do later on. Obviously with the weather, we're not going to get a lot of the site improvements completed because it's just going to be too cold by the time we get some of these feeds in. So, you know, a lot of the site work will be completed in early spring as well. So, you know, this is going to be an ongoing project because we're going to be there. But I want to make sure that we don't have to redo anything, which is, you know, the biggest thing we want to avoid. So if we can run a little bit extra conduit to make sure that we can add some lighting or cameras or whatever, we're going to do that. We just may not be able to afford, you know, all the bells and whistles just now.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you for your report.
Oh, one more thing quick. You may notice Empire Street, we did paint the parking stalls today. So if any of your constituents comment on it, please convey that back to me. I'm kind of interested to see how that's conveyed. Several people were thought it was a great idea. That's people that were on the south side of the road. That people always park in their driveways or across their driveways, especially towards the school. So any feedback whatsoever, because it's temporary, it's paint. We can always change it. But I don't believe it's been striped in some time. So, and if we mill and repave, I want to know what we're doing before we would do thermoplastic or something more permanent on a permanent pavement. So, thanks.
Thank you. We now move to item 13, which is the mayor's report. There's 3 items I want to itemize briefly. First, there is a change order being prepared for the modern plating site. There is some grant money which was not spent, and there are some improvements that could be made to the site, and there is some additional contamination that's been identified in one section of the site. So that change order is being put together by Fair Graham. You'll be probably receiving a copy of the change order for approval at the first meeting in November. Any questions on that?
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney.
what's the anticipated cost?
Well, it was originally about $90,000, which was a substantial part of the original contract because of the level of site work. The new figures haven't come in yet. I think it's going to be less, but I'm not 100% sure until I see it. Number 2, as you know, there's a tremendous amount of work being done in the water department, as you may have seen in the article. We're also doing a lot of things at the wastewater treatment plant. So as we speak, the blowers and other things are being assembled for installation. This is a substitution of a whole series of blowers with 2 high energy efficiency blowers. As you may or may not know also, we were fortunate in finally getting our money from the state. So of the $600,000, all but about 150 of it is going to be covered by grants. Part of that process also is looking at further refinements in the drying process of the biosolids that come out of the sludge. What's kind of intriguing to me is that there are 3 different firms, each of which had different technology. They were on site over this summer and spring, to demonstrate in action their technology. So those results are now in. There'll be some recommendations made to the Water and Sewer Commission and ultimately to you for what's included in the capital plan in the future. The intent is to make the drying process more efficient so that there is less product, and that's the product that's distributed on fields. So there's a lot of things that will go into the capital plans that we bring in the forthcoming budget, and not all of them are water related. Last item, I've had discussions with some of you. There is a renovation plan for the Brewster and the, I believe, the Hosmer housing development. The federal government does not favor traditional rehabilitation through housing authorities. In fact, most of these renovations are now taking place by a combination of creating a not-for-profit that receives tax credits and receives other funding that does come through a variety of mechanisms for what is estimated to be about a $7 million renovation. Involved in this is a not-for-profit called the Community Development Corporation, and people have approached me with some questions about what's the role of that in the transfer of these properties to the Development Corporation and how it operates afterwards. There's a letter that is required for approving the environmental assessment, and the staff and I are working very hard to answer questions on that. And I intend to have extensive discussions over the next 2 days because this has to be dealt with by Wednesday at the latest. So I will be making a report to the council, and I know that some of you have also asked a lot of questions about it. Questions?
Mayor, will there be any formal action that will need to take place from the council regarding those two projects?
No. No. And if we don't act on it, keep in mind that that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't do the project. It means that they can go to IDA and get the same approvals, but it's pro forma that it comes through the chief executive officer of the city. They also could conceivably go to the county, although I think that's a little bit of a reach, but it would be a new project at that time. So, as you know, Alderman Chesney, from our discussions, there's a lot of attention being given to what I call the law of anticipated consequences. I want to make sure that we understand fully all of the aspects of the financial transaction, what the end product is going to be, and perhaps most important, who's going to have a controlling ability to manage this project and what is it likely to result in. And I will be also happy to report to you that some of those questions have received a positive answer, one I'll be happy to share with you. We'll now move on to council announcements, and I believe we would start with Alderman Ross.
Yes. We have neighborhood watches this Thursday, October 20th, at 6 p.m. at the St. Mary's Community Center. Basically, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderperson Miller.
Yeah, I just have two things. A couple of dates, actually. Next Wednesday, October 26th, is the Freeport Fish Tank. It is a contest that was put out there to encourage new ideas and new businesses within the Freeport area. And so I just would like to encourage you, if your time allows, that you avail yourself to that. Cocktails start at 5 o'clock, the presentations start at 6, and there is a $5 cover to get into that. And they do expect that to sell out. So if you are interested in going, you can get tickets from the Journal Standard on the 9th floor for that. And then also on November 4th, which is a Friday, the new Freeport brand will be officially unveiled at the Wagner House, and everyone is invited. It's a free event. They're going to have a couple of bands and launch the new brand. So avail yourself to that as well if you have time. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Busker.
The only thing this evening is Neighborhood Watch for the 5th Ward is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the First Church of the Nazarene. So anyone interested, come on out.
Thank you. Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. For our constituents, I just want to remind everybody as they put their leaves to the street, do not put sticks, do not put garden waste, do not put tree branches, anything that could clog up our blowers or our what do you call them, the sucking mechanisms on our leaf trucks. It's one of those things that every year I still see it in my ward, and I stop by house to house as I see these big tree branches being thrown out there because people think that they're going to have to pick them up. No, the street department does not have to do that. They can take the branches, throw them aside, but if they get those clogged up in their mechanisms, it just creates such a problem. So anyhow, hopefully everyone will be considerate this year.
Thank you. Alderman Keister.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Two quick things. I keep neglecting to announce when the neighborhood watch is for the 7th Ward, and I'm going to make sure I don't neglect that this time. 4th Wednesday of the month, 6:30 at the main fire station on Walnut and South Street. So if you're in the 7th Ward, please attend. We'd like to have you. And a quick question for you, Mayor. We've talked a lot about Carnegie Library and other things that we're doing. What about City Hall? What's going on there? What are we doing with that? Are we moving forward with anything? We haven't talked about that for a while, and the building is still sitting there. We need to do something, so I don't know, we need to get it on the topic as discussion or have proposals as to what we're going to do.
Two things. One, Director Dole and our consultants have been looking at the roof and other things that we need for stabilization. So you may be finding some winterization being done of a very modest proportion to make sure that we don't have a roof that is leaking heavy amounts of water. We want to keep the envelope as tight as we can. Two, I think it's up to the council to make some decisions about any additional work that's going to be done. As you know, the original objective was to get rid of the fence and to secure the building and then market it. Interestingly enough, what we have now is a group which I'm not prepared to announce publicly because I don't have permission, but has expressed an interest in the building. I'd like to see if that, and that's a local interest, and if that comes about, then I think that changes our whole course of action in terms of what we do with the building and how we market it and whether we do an RFP. So I think that within the next 30 days, we'll have something to report to you on which course of action we pursue.
Okay, and if that does fall through, Mayor, and I hope it doesn't, but if it does fall through, we talked tonight about possible donations for doing things with the Carnegie Library. Maybe we can talk to the citizens, and maybe we can either get some in-kind work or some donations to do something with the Carnegie Library and make it sellable or usable. Some option I think we should look into.
I think it's an option. I don't know how realistic it is with the amount of work that we need to do that's structural in nature, according to the engineering reports that Director Gallagher has. I have had discussions with the Save City Hall individuals and said, you know, maybe this is a joint partnership that we go to people to solicit funds for stabilization. I haven't heard back on that.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
I mean, I think there's a feeling, Alderman Keister, that it's a city building and it's our responsibility, and it is indeed. But look at all of the different projects that were discussed tonight, and look at all the things that we're carrying, and look at how tight our budget is. I mean, we had to transfer $800 just to deal with streetlights and an unanticipated repair. We faced some hard decisions as to where we're going to put future resources, and I'm not going to kid you about it. If there was a silver bullet, I think we would have all used it already. But I do think that there are some options, albeit less than 50% options, that are out there, and I think we ought to pursue them and do everything we can to move it along. And most of all, every time I see that fence, it just nauseates me. I would like to get rid of the fence. I'd like to make the building presentable, and I'd like to find a useful tenant for it who has the capacity financially to do things with that building. And of course, what we don't want is another building that falls into hands and then a person lacks capacity to maintain it, and then it's worse than it was before. I think we all have seen that happen in private and public, and obviously that's what we want to avoid.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Chesney.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick follow-up on Westport. We were going to have a presentation that I understand is taking place the first meeting in November. Is that correct?
It is, as far as I know. Meg has worked on that very hard with them. We've been pushing to get that sooner rather than later. Meg, do you have anything more recent on it?
The first meeting in November was what was quoted to me.
Thank you.
We're very anxious to see that happen because I think that as the community learns more about it, there'll be less apprehension.
And I understand there were some emergency repairs done on Main Street with some of the roofs.
Yes.
What was the overall cost of those projects?
Alex?
I believe it was not to exceed $14,000.
What we're attempting to do there is, after inspection, is to repair the roofs. Those are actually structurally sound buildings. If we can just take care of them, we really need to find ways to get them into private hands. The demolition costs are astronomical. So the cost here is do we make a modest investment now to secure the envelope, or do we advance, basically, if we have a harsh winter, the prospects of facing the same dilemmas that we have with a couple of other buildings? We do have one building that I'm hopeful that we can negotiate the demolition of, and not the one on Stevenson either. Alderman Chesney, anything else? Okay. Alderman Clem.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Alderman McClanathan.
Just like to reiterate and encourage folks for what Alderperson Miller said, the two events, and on a gratuitous personal note, she's probably in bed, but happy birthday to my 8-year-old daughter, my oldest daughter.
Congratulations. I think that concludes council announcements. Now we move to public comments. I see we have one public comment. Actually, we have two.
I'm going to beat Tom. I just wanted to remind you all of our prayer breakfast coming up on the Thursday morning between 7 and 8, October 27th. You have to have breakfast anyway, so you'll come and just, you don't have to pray. I'm not asking everybody to do it, just those who want to. But we're covering every single part of this city. I haven't figured out finance, public works, or water and sewer yet. We got to get somebody who wants to pray for that. But originally this was supposed to have been just pastors, and I could see, I have such a love for all of you guys and just for this city that we need to combine those two together, which we have done. And we have many people here and in other parts of government that are praying with our pastors. You want to spend a morning, come and be able to interact with the pastors. I think this is something that God really has on his heart. He wants the whole city united. So you come, and I'll be seeing you there.
Pastor, is that at 9 East again? Or
Yes.
7 to 8. Yeah, is that what I said?
9 East?
Oh, 9 East Coffee, yes. Sorry.
Yes. Tommy?
I want to thank you, Mayor, to come to the Inbury Church. You and Todd did a good job in your, but that award, you like that award I got from Special Olympics?
Yes. I saw your award.
And we saw you sitting, we had good food there too.
We did.
And I want to tell you in the mayor, we don't want no city manager. We want to keep you full time. And I'm going to vote no for it. For you.
Okay.
You do a good job in Mayor of Freeport. I don't care what they said. You do a good job as Mayor of
Thank you. Thank you.
And I wanted to tell Alex Moore. Alex? You got to ask you a question? They got permit to do the Rosati. And I saw they put the wall up there all over to the building over there. And they're going to open middle of November.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Not the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's Moved by Alderman Busker and seconded by Alderman Ross. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned, all business having been concluded.